I think we're ready.
All right, we're good to go here too.
Can you let me know when we're streaming?
We are live.
Thank you. Good morning. This is a convening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. I'm Jordan Maynard, and I'm serving as the interim chair of the commission. This meeting is being held virtually, so we will do a roll call. Good morning, Commissioner O'Brien.
Good morning, I am here.
Good morning, Commissioner Hill.
Morning, I'm here.
And good morning, Commissioner Skinner.
Good morning.
Today is August 1st, 2024, 2-year anniversary of being on the commission for me. It's been a great 2 years. And it's approximately 10:02 a.m. We're going to move on to item number 2. And for that, I will turn to Secretary Commissioner Skinner.
All right, here we go. We have 3 sets of minutes to vote on today. Each of us was present for these meetings, so I'm going to take them all at once. And so I move that the commission approve the meeting minutes from the February 8th, February 21st, and February 28th, 2024 meetings that are included in our packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes, 4-0. And thank you, Commissioner Skinner. I can attest, and Commissioner Hill can too, and Commissioner O'Brien, to how difficult the position is. So we appreciate it and appreciate your work. And I see Judy on the screen too. So thank you, Judy. With that, we are going to turn to item number 3, which is an administrative update. Good morning, Executive Director Dean Serpa.
Hello, good morning, Chair Maynard. Thank you very much. And good morning, commissioners. I have just one short update for today's executive update. I wanted to communicate to the group and make sure everybody knew that as of this week, the commission is going to move forward with its 2024 performance review project. So between now and the end of September, all staff and all managers will be working to complete this year's individual reviews. I know that each of you know that performance reviews are always an important touch point for staff and managers to meet and have deliberate discussions and provide each other with helpful and constructive feedback. So that will be happening over the next 8 weeks or so. But I bring it up specifically this year to make sure the commissioners know that we have implemented a new performance management platform called Cornerstone. The new platform is a pretty user-friendly and slick tool for managing the process of collecting the information and tracking the individual manager's progress and making sure everything gets done in a complete and correct order, right? So it's a nice upgrade over the tool we've used previously, and the HR team has been doing in-person and virtual trainings to introduce the application to the staff. And while we might have a few unplanned growing pains as we roll out the new process, I am confident it's going to be a good step forward for us. But most importantly, I wanted to thank the HR and IT implementation team, Director Muldrew and his team, and Director Jagrup Gomes and her team, who completed the procurement for this product and the build out and the implementation of the new application. It's going to be a nice tool for us all to use, I think. And I wanted to let you know that, and I wanted to thank them for their hard work. And that was my update, unless there's any questions on that.
Thank you, ED Serpa. Anything to add? I see Dave came off his microphone. Chief Muldrew.
Good morning, Interim Chair Maynard and Commissioners. It's an exciting time, and I agree with Executive Director Serpa. Appreciate his support, and we were working hard on this. So again, I think it's an outstanding, it's an incredible time for the organization as we start talking about performance objectives, goals, and getting folks trained, and it's exciting. So we're looking forward to it in a very positive light. And thank you for your support.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hill, I see your mic is off. Okay,
For the next one.
all right. Well, we appreciate it. Edie Serpa, Chief Muldrew. I see Katrina has joined. Thank you for all your work on that. I did do the training. All right. I'm a little bit of a Luddite for all of you that know me, but I think I'm going to be able to use the tool. So with that said, we will turn to item number 4. Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the legislature actually just wrapped up their business for the 2023-2024 legislative full formal sessions at 9:17 this morning. So they went overnight to try and get all their work done. A few days ago, however, the state budget was put on the governor's desk, and she actually took action on the budget. She sent back some vetoes, and the conference committees, which released the FY state budget, was on July 18th, and it appropriated about $58 billion for the FY 25 op. There were 261 outside sections. I'm not sure if that's a record, but it sure would be in the top 3, I bet, for outside sections for the budget. The governor returned the bill to the legislature on July 29th, vetoing approximately $317 million in spending and reducing the budget to $57.78 billion. The governor also vetoed 3 outside sections that were included in the conference report. The legislature, as of last night, had the option to either sign the bill into law or override some of the vetoes with 2/3 votes, and some of that did take place. However, none of the items that were vetoed impacted the Mass Gaming Commission. Of note to the commission is, however, we received funding for payments to cities and towns hosting racing and facility licensees, and the appropriation in line item 1050 and 0140 and $50,000. The Senate had zeroed this item out, if you remember, in their version of the budget, but the conference committee restored it. In addition to funding provided in the FY25 budget, there are 3 collections of outside sections that impact the Mass Gaming Commission in one way or the other. The next area addressed in outside sections is a redistribution of tax dollars generated by Category 1 gaming operators, which is Section 194 of the budget. This section seeks to pause the distribution in Section 59 of Chapter 23K for fiscal year 2025 only, and distributes tax dollars to address the funding pressures the Commonwealth is facing. The MGC receives portion of these tax distribution through the Public Health Trust Fund, the Racehorse Development Fund, as well as the Community Mitigation Fund. The governor's budget, the House budget, and the Senate budget all look to distribute gaming taxes differently. The conference committee adopted the House version of the proposals, which kept the Racehorse Development Fund and the Public Health Trust Fund consistent with Chapter 23K, Section 59. However, the Community Mitigation Fund, as we now know, was eliminated from receiving distribution in FY25 only, which is approximately a $16.7 million cut to that fund. Another bill that we were watching that would have affected the Mass Gaming Commission actually was voted on early this morning, I think around 4:30, if my memory serves me right, that had to do with veteran benefits. In that bill, there was language in the House, I believe, in their version that would have allowed slot machines in our veteran associations and veteran clubs. That language was removed from the bill when it was voted on, so that is not something that was adopted, and all other language, all other bills that had that language have all been dealt with. So as of today, there will be no slot machines in the veteran organizations. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, that is the update that we have from the budget and other legislative bills that were moving through the legislative process that again was supposed to end at midnight last night, but ended at 9:17 this morning. And I would be more than happy to take any questions, and of course want to thank Derek and his team for working with me to get this information to you this morning and last week in the memos.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner O'Brien, Commissioner Skinner? Any questions? I'll just take this time again to say that we're appreciative to have a former member of the General Court dealing with the legislation and in Commissioner Hill. And we want to thank the legislature and the governor for their thorough work and hard work on this. And we know that it's no easy task. And we try to implement everything that comes our way in a fair and appropriate manner. So
I too would just add that we've had more meetings probably in the last 30 days with our legislative partners than I think I remember since I've been here. And the House, the Senate, and the governor's office all were great listeners to the concerns that we had throughout the process, and overall accepted what we had to say. And I think the budget proves that.
thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hill. With that, we're going to move on to the next item. I feel like everyone can breathe now that the session's over. So for that, we're going to kick it over to Director Mark Vanderlinden. Mark, I know you have 3 items today. We're going to be joined by ID pair, and Dr. Andrews is going to give a presentation, and then we're going to hear from Chelsea Turner too at some point. So with that, I'll kick it over to you. Good morning.
Great. Good morning. Good morning, Chair Maynard. Good morning, commissioners. Yes, we have 3 items today, and I will kick it off before turning it over to Dr. Andrews and Long Dan for their respective topics. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit more about a national voluntary self-exclusion model. This actually was an issue that I brought before you in, I think it was early April, and received direction from you to continue to pursue information on this model. So just by way of further background, MGC Regulation 205 CMR 133 governs procedures and protocols relative to the list of self-excluded persons from entering the gaming area of a gaming establishment or any area in which parimutuel or simulcast wagering are placed. There's also 205 CMR 233 extends this to sports wagering. To date, we're approaching, I think, the 2,000 persons are currently enrolled in the voluntary self-exclusion program. When you enroll in one of these 2 programs or both, it extends to all operators. So if you enroll in casino exclusion, it extends to all casinos and simulcast in Massachusetts. In sports wagering, it extends across all sports wagering operators in Massachusetts. That's the good news, is that it provides full coverage within Massachusetts. However, there isn't VSE reciprocity between U.S. states and anywhere in the U.S. And so, for example, if you're enrolling in the VSE program in Massachusetts, you can cross the border into Connecticut and easily gamble online or at a casino there, Rhode Island, anywhere in the New England area. And as gambling opportunities have become increasingly accessible via mobile and brick and mortar casinos across New England, this is proving to be a significant limitation and burden for individuals who are reaching out for help via the voluntary self-exclusion program. And so an individual that has enrolled in Massachusetts would also then have to travel to Connecticut or travel to Rhode Island or any other state if they wish for their self-exclusion to extend beyond the borders of Massachusetts. Hence the justification for a multi-state or national model in this space. This type of model would offer individuals the opportunity to enroll, say, in Massachusetts and have it extend to other participating states. It would be completely voluntary. For that to be extended to other states, they could also limit it to the exclusion within Massachusetts. And Jonathan, I always mispronounce his last name, but Iwanzian, CEO of ID Pair, will give you more information about a model in which this could be possible. Just before I turn it over to Jonathan, let me just say that this type of model really does require cooperation of other states, and that is no small task. Each state, as Massachusetts does, we have our own regulation, we have our own laws relative to voluntary self-exclusion. And while we can hold on to this ideal of easy access to this program, each state has to overcome certain barriers in order to do this. And so I do believe that there is a growing movement with this goal in mind. And so ID Pair anticipates the support of respective VSE enrollment forms in California, Colorado, Iowa, and Michigan, beginning in August. This doesn't necessarily help us all that much, though it illustrates that there is a path forward for us to take. Where it would become very important for Massachusetts is when you see other New England states participate in such a program. And so I've reached out to other New England states: Vermont, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Maine. And there certainly is interest in participating in this type of multi-state voluntary self-exclusion program. There's also a reluctance to be the first to sign on. It would be my hope that and recommendation that Massachusetts does take that step and say, should to agree to participate as other states would come on board, we would be able to offer this. There are certainly hurdles in Massachusetts too, not just looking at our regulations, but extending over into technology and legal and privacy. We've been working with our wonderful CIO, Katrina Jagrov-Gomes, to identify what barriers there are there. We've also been working closely with our legal division to identify where issues would arise. I think that there clearly is direction from our legal and IT divisions to say that yes, Massachusetts has a potential path forward here should the commission wish to pursue this. As you said, Chair Maynard, a few weeks ago, this is sort of, let's take it step by step. And I think the goal for me today is to have you see sort of firsthand what this would look like, what the individual's experience would be enrolling in such a program. So I'm really fortunate today and really appreciate the CEO of ID Pair, Jonathan Iwanzian, who is here, who was the architect behind this, along with his team, to develop this model. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jonathan to further explain and demonstrate this product. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Vanderland. And before we turn to Jonathan, any questions so far? All right. Good morning, John.
I'm sorry, I
Commissioner
do,
Skinner.
Chair Maynard, I couldn't get my unmute button pressed fast enough. So just on the latter part of your presentation, Mark, your intro, where you say that the other New England states are hesitant to be the first. Any idea why?
I think it's honestly, Commissioner Skinner, I don't have a great idea why. I think, Jonathan has certainly been in communication with him too. He may have some insights. I think it's just being the first, that to put yourself out there with a product where other states haven't signed on to it. That's my best guess. But Jonathan, you may have some further detail on that.
I can just add a quick addition to that, is that a national program is not national with one state. So to join as the first state takes the anticipation that others will join after. So I think that is the hesitation, is that if you join as the first state, it's not national yet, it's not even regional yet, but it has to build off the first state. So having a state take that first step encourages the other states that they're joining something that exists already, rather than being the first building block.
I'm sorry, if I could just add, this is looking at this opportunity to create this type of multi-state VSD is something that Commission has been interested in for a long time, going back to sort of the early days of the Commission. And there's always been hurdles that have been there. And I think that those hurdles, whether statutory, legal, regulatory, have been a significant barrier within Massachusetts, but probably more prominently so in some other states. And I think that, you know, technology has also been a significant barrier, and we can get over that technology. I think that there's some doors of opportunity that can open. And Jonathan, I think your demonstration should kind of illustrate some of that.
Sure.
If I could, just before you jump in, hi, Jonathan, it's nice to see you again.
Okay.
This is for you and Mark. Is some of it sort of PII? I know people are voluntarily opting into this, but I know in other parts of my life, when we tried to do data sharing projects, right, you run into other states' data privacy laws, and sometimes just the wording gets in the way. Is that some of the challenges we're going to be looking at?
Jonathan, do you want to take that?
So in the case of PII, the people are coming to the program to get their information shared and designating exactly where it's going. So I'll cover this a little bit in the presentation, but there's no sharing of their information anywhere they haven't consented to it going for the purposes of their self-exclusion. So that gets over a lot of the hurdles. You know, they're not coming to watch a TV program and then we're sending their data somewhere else. They're coming to give their data for self-exclusion and telling us where they want it to go. So that solves a lot of the hurdles there. And of course, protection of the data and privacy of the data is treated with the utmost respect through the technology and through the administration of the program.
Right. I know that there are some agencies that literally have bans on sharing, even if it came in, you wouldn't be able to, even if the individual wanted you to. Mark, I take it from your recitation of our regs, we wouldn't need a reg change. This is something that's absolutely authorized within the regs, but maybe that's a question for legal offline.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Commissioner O'Brien. Legal has looked at this. I also consulted with Privacy Council and another state agency to get a sense of a high level. What are the privacy regulations and concerns from Massachusetts perspective, and then frankly having a better understanding of the data flow as it goes through ID Care helped illuminate a lot of this for me, because as Jonathan was saying, since the commission will not be sharing data out, the individuals be going to ID pair, inputting their data, consenting to share it with specific jurisdictions. It removes a lot of the privacy concerns.
So it moves conduct basically in the transference. So
right, we are not transferring any of the data ourselves. In addition, we have in our terms and conditions under the IT contract and the state contract that covers off a lot of the data privacy and data protection issues that we would have. There'd be heightened risk, and Katrina and I have spoken about this several times. So we do feel comfortable from that perspective. And we're going to, Mark will get into this, I'm sure, but we're going to have a further deep dive from like the legal analysis piece of this, I believe, coming up on August 15th. So that will be in the memo and everything for the packet at that point.
okay, great. Thank you, Justin.
Yep. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. So Jonathan, with that, I feel like this is the MGC record for intros. Feel free to move forward with your presentation.
Okay, thank you. I will pull up the slides here, and thank you to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission for having me today and for your attention to this matter. I'm going to full screen the slides here, so please let me know if they don't advance or if any issues. There are a couple of videos as well, so when we get to those, just let me know if there are any issues. So we kind of outlined a lot of the benefits through Director Vanderlinden's introduction there. Thank you. But why is a national program needed? So state programs only provide protection within the state, with casinos and online gambling sometimes minutes away in another state. The protection provided could be more effective, especially in the Northeast region where we have a very high concentration of states. For people to get voluntary self-exclusion to work for them, they sometimes need to go to extraordinary lengths, which not everyone has the means to do. I will highlight a couple of those stories right after this slide. And the current process of applying in multiple states is confusing for people and creates dozens of lists for operators to maintain and process. So in some states, you have a paper form. In some states, it's an online form. In some states, you go into a casino to do it. In some states, it's a completely different location. So it's kind of messy out there when you talk about the different states and what they do. And this is just a result of different states coming online with gambling at different times. And for example, New Jersey launched primarily first there. They didn't think about what Pennsylvania or neighboring states might do when they put their regulations around self-exclusion in place. But now is a time that we have such a high number of states that it makes sense to take another look at it. So simplifying this process for consumers and operators is a win for everyone. So GameSense was nice enough to provide a couple stories from their interactions with customers and in the casinos on the casino floor. So thank you, GameSense, both for the work that you do and also for providing some valuable background here to illustrate how this program can help. So this is a story actually from GameSense perspective. And people ask if the self-exclusion they were doing with me counted for Connecticut and Rhode Island casinos as well. They were all visibly disappointed they would have to make those extra trips or fill out extra forms. In Rhode Island, you must do it in person. They would have all preferred getting it taken care of in one sitting. So people go in with the intent to stop going to the casino, for example. They don't have any, they don't care if it's a Massachusetts casino, Rhode Island casino, Connecticut casino. They just want to stop going to the casino. So filing this form in Massachusetts does prevent that in Massachusetts, but as I'll show a map later in the slides, it's just a few miles over the border to the next casino in a neighboring state. So this is a second story here from GameSense. We have multiple people excluding in New York and then coming to MGM Springfield to gamble. They were on the MGM self-limit list, but were still allowed to gamble as cash players and without promos and benefits. One man spoke to me a long time about how all that started happening was that he was traveling further and wasting more time and gas, but was still gambling. He ended up doing the Massachusetts exclusion with me, so was no longer able to play at MGM Springfield either. He's not the only one that simply switched which casinos they would go to after doing an exclusion in a particular state, say Rhode Island or Connecticut. So someone who's perhaps struggling financially as a result of issues with gambling, then having to spend additional gas and time. You know, time is a factor that often gets forgotten when people are struggling with gambling, but time spent away from family, time spent going to the casino, these are things that can't be gotten back for people who are struggling with gambling. So looking at the region, and we're talking about the Northeast and New England here, within 50 miles of the Massachusetts border, pick a state, any direction, there is a casino option available. So if you look to the south in Rhode Island, you have two Bally's properties. If you look into the south in Connecticut, you have Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun. To the west in New York, you have Rivers Casino and Saratoga Casino, as well as several smaller casinos in New Hampshire, and online gambling available in all 5 bordering states. So through collaboration through the national program, consumers can receive a greater level of protection from self-exclusion. So key points, and a lot of these may answer questions that we just talked about how this is able to fit within the regs. So we're not asking states to change their existing program. So this can be things as simple as term lengths. If it's 1 year, 5-year, lifetime, there's no need to suddenly adopt a 2-year or a 10-year or anything else to join the national program. All the elements of the state's programs remain the same. We're giving people a way to sign up for the different state programs in one step. So we also don't take the existing data from your state list. So for example, a couple thousand names on the list now, those people did not authorize their information to be shared with anyone else besides the Massachusetts Gaming Commission and the operators that need to have that information. So we're not asking for any of that information to come to us. We're starting a new list and it's from 0 names, and people who sign up will sign up through the national program, and they'll be aware of what they're signing up for, where their information is going, and consent to all of that. This does not mean that the state list has to disappear. In fact, we encourage that the state list, Massachusetts list, operates in parallel. And there is an opportunity in the future if the state should decide they want to move solely to the national program, but that's by no means an obligation, and that can be over the course of several years or not at all. So at the beginning, we encourage states to keep both while they get comfortable with each system, and then they can decide at a later date what they want to do in terms of state versus national. From the operator's perspective, they get consistent data and only of individuals that have opted into their states and products. So for example, if I'm a casino operator in Indiana and someone self-excludes from sports betting in Massachusetts, I'm not going to get that information from that person. So we only send the information directly to the authorized products and states that the consumer has selected. Of course, there are corporate policies that extend nationally in some cases, and we make sure that people are aware of these. So several operators will self-exclude you from all their properties if there is a self-exclusion in one state. However, that's not uniform across the industry, and it's something that sometimes adds confusion for people who go on an annual trip to Nevada and don't understand why they can't enter the property when they've self-excluded in a different state. So we take that information from the consumer, we deliver it to the regulators. We can optionally deliver it to the operators as well if the regulations allow. But in Massachusetts' case, it's simplest if the regulator receives the data and then distributes it to the operators. So looking at the application itself, the goals here are simple: to give people an easy way to sign up, choose their states, not cause a lot of regulatory changes, and have a straightforward implementation. So we do have the ability to link to the player account management systems of the operators. That's not something required or needed on day one, but it does reduce the amount of time from when someone self-excludes to when their name is actually processed within the database of the operator. We also want to make sure people have access to information and resources at all times. So if they ever need to look at what self-exclusion means and what happens if they show up to a property, that information is there. So when we look at how they choose their states, it's very simple. They can check the box for Massachusetts, which would by default select both sports betting and casinos, or they can select one or the other. They can also do the same in other states. New York, for example, does not allow individual product selection, so that would not be an option in New York. If you were to select New York, you would by default get all of the self-exclusion from the different products. So this just gives you a way of how to get your information to the different states and how you authorize that information as a consumer. Once you complete the process, and I'll show you the KYC that happens on the next slide here, but once you complete that process, you can view the status, you can get guidance on what to do when there's reinstatement. So in Massachusetts, you need to meet with a GameSense advisor. You can still get guidance on how to do that, information on how to contact GameSense and set it up, expiration dates and violation information. So if I show up, am I going to be arrested for trespassing? Some states say yes, some states say no, but having that information in one place is very useful for someone who probably signed up in a high stress state and needs to refer back to that information frequently. So here's answering the question of how the data flows. So someone comes to the national program and says, I want to self-exclude from Massachusetts and Vermont. They would provide their information, have their identity validated, and then we would send the data directly to Massachusetts and to Vermont. We would not send it to New Hampshire, and no data is sent from Massachusetts to New Hampshire or any other state, and vice versa. So it's a one-way street with the data flowing from the consumer to the national program and then directly to the states where they've designated. Here's a quick video of the KYC process. So when someone comes to the national program, they'll go ahead and validate their email. After they do this, they're going to go ahead and upload a form of government ID. So there are a couple different options here, but driver's license being the primary one. So they select driver's license from the drop down here. And once they do that, they do a quick scan of the driver's license, which makes sure it's not a fake ID. I blurred out the driver's license just because it's a real driver's license of someone that didn't want their driver's license live streamed. And once they do that, they go ahead and do 3 really quick selfies, one from the front and from the side angles on each side. And what that does is verify the person in front of the device is the person in the ID and the person that's signing up for self-exclusion. So you wouldn't be able to sign somebody else up. From there, you go ahead and go to the screens where you begin your self-exclusion selection process. For the regulators, the view is, you get to see everything pretty much. You get to see the trends in when people are signing up, how many people have signed up. Demographic information can also be made available if wanted. And then once you click through to the individual's information, you can see images as well as ID and other information that would be needed to both identify someone on a property and to enforce the self-exclusion as an operator. So all this information can be made available. It can be downloaded if there is account access given and permissions granted to certain employees. They can download that. All that is audited and logged and auditable at any time. So just lastly, closing here, I want to talk a little bit about what potential technologies can come from this foundational step here. So looking at cool-off periods is an easy one, and saying, someone that wants to take a week off from gambling, rather than go through the 1 year self-exclusion or longer, they just want to test the water and see if they need the full self-exclusion. Cool-off period is an easy way to do that. Right now it's done operator by operator, but it can be done jurisdictionally or it can be done even regionally. And that's a really good way for people to use a less heavy tool in terms of taking a step back. There's also potential to do limit setting across regions and things like that. But this is a really great step in the direction of improving technology for consumers to gamble more sustainably. And lastly here, just about our company, we're a safer gambling company made up of former operators and big data engineers focused on advancing technologies that help consumers keep gambling under control. We believe that connectivity of data is paramount to adapting to changing consumer behaviors that comes with online gambling. We're committed to working with operators, regulators, and universities to keep gambling safe for consumers. And we've partnered with several universities with the goal of conducting anonymized data research on both transactional behaviors and VSE usage to inform and improve policy. So potentially, if people were to opt into their data being used in an anonymized way for research, we could partner with a local university in Massachusetts and study the data to help improve both VSE and policy around it. But obviously an option that is available and only with the consent of people who would make their data anonymized and available for that. So thank you very much. And I will turn it back over to you, Director Vanderlinden. And thank you again to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission for having me today.
Thank you, Jonathan. If you don't mind, Director Vanderlinden, commissioners, we heard a lot there. Any questions, comments? Commissioner O'Brien.
So I love the idea of it. I know, Mark, you've been talking about this for a long time. Sort of ease of use is a great way to go. I have some legal questions. I think I can just sort of flag for legal as we go. But one of the big ones to throw out, because maybe, Jonathan, you've dealt with this too, is like in our state, daily fantasy sports is not regulated by us either. And I noticed it said sports betting, casinos. Is there a way to talk to the AG's office who does supervise it and talk about somebody, because true one-stop shopping might be pulling DFS in as well?
Yes, that technologically it's very easy to do so. And also if iLottery becomes also available, that would be something potentially as well. Yeah. So getting the departments to work together is a goal of ours and something that can be done either through intrastate MOUs or I would leave this to the legal expert, but there are ways to do so. And we can also work directly with the AG or the lottery to include them so that you don't actually have to work together in a legal capacity. We could work with each one and effectively bring it all under the program.
Great, thanks. I love the idea of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. I have a quick question. I think it dovetails a little bit on that. Jonathan, I watch a lot of Shark Tank, and I heard how you built a better mousetrap versus going through and making a patron go to each state and actually self-excluding. So I heard that piece. What I started thinking about, and I don't need an answer now, but it's something I would like to be briefed upon as we go forward on this, is what does reinstatement look like? And how does that process work vis-a-vis the different states? So that was one piece. And the other piece that I wrote down was the regulations. To Commissioner O'Brien's point, you gave an example of what if you just wanted a day, or you wanted a weekend, or you want a month. This body had a long conversation about what the limits look like. I mean, we were parsing out hours and so forth. You know, how are you going to work vis-a-vis other jurisdictions on that piece? So those are really the two overarching themes. One being reinstatement, the other being, I would say exactly what Commissioner O'Brien's bringing up, just a different reg, right? You know, how are you going to, meld these states together? So.
And Chair Maynard, if I could answer at least partially both of those questions. Reinstatement is really important for our model in Massachusetts. And so when we're talking with Jonathan and considering this model, that is still a requirement for reinstatement. And whether that is in person or remote reinstatement, there is still a reinstatement requirement that is there in order to have your name removed from Massachusetts. So there's that piece of it. And in terms of regulation, I think within the 205, 133, and 233, the VSE regulations, there's an option. We talk about designated agents that are able to enroll people into the program. And certainly it will require further conversation with our legal team. But as I understand, we can identify individuals who are enrolling as designated, as those designated agents as identified within regulation.
And just to touch on the term length question. So while there is variation between states, there's a limited variation. So for example, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, and lifetime are the ones you see pretty much almost everywhere in some variation of combinations of those. So there's no one out there with like a 14 year or 18 year. So if someone were to come on and select a 3 year, for example, and Massachusetts were to say, we don't have 3 year, we have 1 year, 5 year, which option would you like? Or would you like to not self-exclude in Massachusetts? So giving options to people and letting them know that some states are a little bit different, you can acknowledge and proceed, or you can not self-exclude in that state as an option too.
I do agree with Commissioner O'Brien on the aims. I mean, I see how this protects not only citizens of the Commonwealth, patrons of the Commonwealth, but also citizens of everywhere that's coming into the Commonwealth. So I do agree with it in theory. Anything else to add?
Chair, I think that this has the potential to be a great program, just based on the presentation. I know we saw sort of a 500-foot view, 5,000-foot view, but so the details still need to be worked out in terms of how the program really works when you start to add different jurisdictions. Can we talk about costs for a second? What's it cost to maintain, to implement, and also to maintain the program? And then, my ultimate question is whether or not there are any procurement laws that are implicated here. And that's just, trying to be fair in terms of going into this discussion, what we need to look out for as we're considering implementing.
So in terms of cost, Commissioner Skinner, I ID Pair has agreed to waive any costs as for Massachusetts for the commission if we agree to adopt this until the point in time which other states begin to come on board with it, at which point there would be a cost associated with it. And ID Pair has come up with sort of a formula that would be determined, and Jonathan, you'll have to correct me, but it's basically based on gambling activity within the state. And it would be capped at a certain point, again, down the line. So at least in this fiscal year, we don't have a budget consideration for it, should we adopt it. However, we would want there to be a budget associated with it because it would be an indication that we have more states that are participating in it, and it gains value. In terms of sort of procurement rules, Justin addressed some of that there is, because this is software, it goes through a statewide contract. Katrina and Justin, we've had some discussion about that, so that because it's going through a statewide contract, it wouldn't need to be competitively procured. And Katrina and Justin, help me if I'm misstating that in any way, shape, or form.
Mark's correct here, Commissioner Skinner, though we would be using a approved third-party software purchaser that's used for many state agencies to essentially function as the middleman here and procure the software for us. And we've used that in the past, and I was working with procurement on that.
Is there any competition in this space, Mark? Any other companies doing this stuff?
Yeah, there is one other company that I am aware of that offers a similar type of solution.
That was a good point by Commissioner Skinner. We want to make sure that even though, we were happy to have that presentation today, that it would be a competitive process, any procurements that would go forward. Thank you, Commissioner Skinner, for bringing that up. All right, commissioners, any other questions, comments? Mark?
Yeah, so back in April, I came before the commission just to test the waters and see if you're open to the idea of a national VSE model. And so that was sort of the 25,000 foot view of it. You indicated yes. And I think today we kind of began to go to a lower altitude, sort of that 5,000 or 10,000 foot view. And the commission agrees that this continues to be of value to the commission and to those in the Commonwealth. I'd like to take it down and continue to work forward through the IT, legal, regulatory, procurement issues of the commission.
So commissioners, are we okay with Mark continuing to land the plane, to hold the analogy? And would anybody be interested in joining him on this effort? I'm hearing an opportunity here, perhaps for commissioners to be involved.
I'm a yes for going forward. Certainly offer to help if it's helpful. Work with anybody who's interested also.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien.
Same, I'm a yes for moving forward. I think it's worthwhile for sure. And I'm also offering to contribute in any way I can.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, I'm also for moving forward, but Commissioner Skinner had brought up the issue that I was going to bring up, which is a cost. And what I'm hearing here is that we're not exactly going to know what the cost is going to be when we land that plane. We have been told today that at the beginning of this process that there wouldn't be a cost, but as new states join, the cost goes up or the cost goes down. We don't know what that's going to be. And that makes me nervous. We need to have a better view of what the cost would be, not only now, but in the future, before we say yes to this. So I think that's out there, and I think we need a little bit more information on it. I'm all for the concept of what you're doing, Mark, and agree with all of my fellow commissioners, that we need to move forward. But that's a big question that needs to be answered before I'm comfortable giving it a big yes at the end.
And just commissioners.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Sorry, Justin. I agree with you 100%. I understood, though, that we would get the answer to those, the fine tuning of the cost question during this process. So hopefully Jonathan can and Mark can confirm that.
I'm not trying to be negative here, but that's going to be hard to do, because you're not going to know how many states are going to be involved. You don't know how many will be added at a later time and things of that sort. So not as easy as I think we might think it is.
So as part of that, can we track what we've been spending annually on the VSE, doing it the way we've been doing it? So we have a sense of how much we've been spending?
I think that'd be a good idea.
We've been running it completely internally, so we can and certainly work with Derek and team to identify what costs can be allocated to that. Yeah.
Right.
And just to clarify, the plan today was for sort of a high level view with no vote on this matter. And for the 15th, we're coming back with a memorandum of additional, like, further detail from legal and from RG on a much. We can add, I think we could probably add this into that memorandum so that we can have a more fulsome discussion about the nitty gritty details here. But because that was the plan. So today we don't actually have a vote scheduled for this, but on the 15th, I think we probably would to move forward. But this is helpful context for what other points we should address in that memo.
And that was exactly, Commissioner Hill hit upon something, which is, I thought immediately to when Commissioner Skinner and I worked on the procurement for the licensing software. It makes me feel 1,000 times better to have some commissioners involved, looking at, the process, what the costs are going to be. To your point, Commissioner Hill, we could really map it out on, like, what's the highest cost scenario, what's the lowest, what's the midpoint, right? And again, the opportunity for it to be competitively bid on is important to me too. And so I know that if two of my colleagues are involved, I'm going to feel much better about it as we move forward through the process. And if we need to move it from the 15th on, we can move it from the 15th on. I mean, that's something we can do, Commissioners. So, all right. Anything else? Jonathan, we appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Director Vanderlyn, and we're sticking with you.
We are. Actually, you're going to be speaking with Dr. Andrews, who is going to slide over into my seat right now. So give me just 1 second here as we transition.
It's a very low-tech way to do it.
Okay.
Welcome, Dr. Andrews.
Hello, thank you. Let me see. I'm just going to share my screen. This should. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, excellent. And hear me okay? All right, fabulous. So today I'm here because we wrote an academic paper to talk about the structure of the research program in Massachusetts. And particularly navigating considerations related to the funding source for this research, which indirectly comes from industry. And we were hoping that this would be helpful for other jurisdictions considering implementation of a research program, and wanted to present this for you and see if you had anything to add or any questions. So that's sort of the purpose of this presentation today. Let me see. Okay, so just as background, industry-funded research has sparked considerable controversy across an array of academic fields of study, which includes the field of gambling studies. And previous research in fields other than gambling has found evidence of a funding effect or association between research outcomes and funding source. And an additional point of concern is industry influence on research questions that are asked and the topics that are investigated. And although two recent reviews of the literature within the gambling field did not find evidence of differences in methodological quality or outcomes in industry-funded research compared to research funded from other sources, some gambling researchers have expressed legitimate concern. So again, just as a backdrop, it's just important to think about this context and possibilities for industry influence when you're thinking about research. And the next point is that further complicating the gambling research environment is that in most countries, including the United States and Canada, there's no federal agency explicitly dedicated to addressing gambling-related issues, which includes provision of research funding. So therefore, it's both necessary and important to identify and address ethical issues related to industry funding, even when the industry funding is indirect. And I'm just going to go over a little bit of the regulatory and structural backdrop of the Massachusetts model for research, or how we've kind of set up our research program here. And this piece, a lot of this is not going to be new information for you, since it deals with how the law lays out the research program, but it is discussed in the paper, so I just wanted to go over it a little bit. And that's how the Expanded Gaming Act formed the Gaming Commission, and laid out not just research would need to be conducted annually, but also a very broad array of research topics for the research agenda. The Expanded Gaming Act also designated a funding source, which is the Public Health Trust Fund, which is where a certain amount of proceeds from gambling go into a designated fund that with the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, who then gives the money to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission for research and responsible gaming initiatives, and the Massachusetts Department of Public Health for prevention and treatment initiatives. It also established an advisory body, which is the Gaming Policy Advisory Committee, whose membership is outlined in the legislation to advise on the development of the annual research agenda. And lastly, there's a special provision here, and that's for casino licensees to give data to the Gaming Commission and make this data available for qualified researchers to improve understanding of problem gambling, develop evidence-based harm minimization strategies, and build evidence-based systems to identify and respond to high-risk gambling behaviors. And also as part of this, I also wanted to call out something, which is the MGC mission statement. And the wording of this statement isn't in the legislation. But the mission is to maximize consumer protections, minimize negative impacts, and promote responsible gaming through regulation, research, and informed policymaking. So this represents an intentional choice on the part of the Gaming Commission to adopt a regulatory approach which prioritizes harm minimization. And now that I've talked a little bit about how the legislation laid the groundwork for the research program, I'll review how the research program is structured to emphasize openness, transparency, and methodological soundness. So essentially, our research projects are awarded through an open procurement process. And the Gaming Commission also secures the services of experts, so academics and public sector researchers in relevant fields, including but not limited to gambling, health policy, psychology, and public health, to form the Research Review Committee. Research Review Committee members are financially compensated for their time, but they do not have a vested interest in the success of gaming in the Commonwealth, and they serve as consultants to the Gaming Commission. And they review and evaluate research both pre and post execution. And doing both the pre and the post execution just underscores the commitment to research integrity. And the other issue is that there's a commitment to open science principles on the part of the research agenda, so public dissemination of research materials, reports, and data, as the MGC also makes data sets from funded research available to qualified researchers, and will soon make the player level data available. So to kind of summarize, helping to ensure separation from industry influence is the establishment of a broad and diverse research areas of focus in legislation, collaboration with outside stakeholders to develop the annual research agenda, use of an open procurement process, so requests for proposals are advertised locally, nationally, and internationally, and having research conducted by outside researchers. And now I just wanted to talk a little bit about how this looks in action. So that the placement of the research agenda with the Gaming Commission, as well as the mandate for annual recommendations to the legislature, ensures that the research findings may inform policy directly and on a continual basis. and that it's grounded in a public health approach. So the focus of the funded research is it's really broad, encompasses systemic and social determinants of health, individual gambling behavior, and the evaluation of prevention and harm reduction initiatives. And in the paper, we've included some examples that are also on this slide of findings from the research and also ways that they've informed recommendations. And also that the placement within the Gaming Commission is important because the Gaming Commission has an existing regulatory relationship with industry. So it can be helpful in obtaining data, when obtaining the data necessary to fulfill the research mandate. The licensees are familiar with the agency and its function. And it also helps to facilitate further research as well. So lastly, we kind of close the paper with a call to regulators and legislators. And we're basically saying that the model of the research program in Massachusetts puts forth a scientifically rigorous process grounded in open science that yields findings advancing the prevention and mitigation of gambling-related harm. And we would encourage other jurisdictions to consider it. And also, lastly, it's important to note that the model isn't static. So it's important to be continually thoughtful about possible industry influence, as well as any other latent biases or assumptions in the research agenda, as well as the reports produced from funded research. So it's kind of it's an ongoing process, essentially. It's not static. So I know that was a very sort of like quick and high-level overview of the paper, but just wanted to kind of open it up to anything that you wanted us to clarify, anything to add, any questions about this.
Thank you, Dr. Andrews. I will say we are very, very proud of the Massachusetts model. You may want to take that down.
Oh, sure.
Just so we can see each other. Commissioners, questions, comments for Dr. Andrews?
Mr. Chairman, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said we're all very proud of the work that's been done. It's been very instrumental in the work that we do and the legislature does. And it is a model that should be shared and copied throughout the United States. It's great work. I know the team that we have here is, and I'll say it, I don't care, the best in the nation when it comes to responsible gaming. And this just goes to show all the great information that we get. I find it invaluable and have used many of the studies for the votes that I take. So as a commissioner, it's invaluable, but to the industry, it's even more invaluable because we haven't, let's be honest, some of our licensees have taken some of the information from these studies and they've used it to make themselves better as well, which is something that I'm very proud of as one member, that we can say to other jurisdictions, is that the information we get from these studies, not only do we use, but our licensees use. So great, I can just say great job. And Mr. Chairman, I'm as proud as you are, and I'm sure my fellow commissioners feel the same way.
And I saw Derek gave a big thumbs up during that. I want to recognize that. Commissioner O'Brien.
So I just want to echo that last week, or where was it? Yeah, last week, Don Nichols G, that the topic of research, that was really what I got questions on. How do you guys do it? How is it embedded in the agency? What's the peer review process? How is it legitimate? And so that, to your point, Commissioner Hill, was absolutely something that was catching everybody's eye. How do they not only look at what we're doing, but see if there's something they can do themselves?
Chair Maynard, if I could just add, there's a lot of credit that should be given to the legislature for carving out a research agenda that this is unprecedented in the US. And I think that the work of kind of defining what the Massachusetts model is hopefully reassurance and a message to the legislature that you did that right, and we're doing as good a job as we possibly can in order to uphold that commitment to research and do it in a way that is grounded by rigor and integrity.
I will only say I agree with Commissioner Hill, but to all other jurisdictions, don't think about poaching our talent here in Massachusetts. So, anything else? We're going to stick with you, Director Van der Linden.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Bonnie.
Thank you.
And I will, I am just going to turn it over to our responsible gaming manager, Long Van, to kick off the game sense discussion.
Good
Thank you,
morning,
Director.
Lon.
Good morning, Interim Chair Maynard, and good morning, Commissioners. So, and I'm going to echo what Director Vanderlin stated. The legislators did a great job when they passed the Expanded Gaming Act. And I think this is where I'm presenting the council to talk about the Game Sense fiscal year. Part of the Expanding Gaming Act, the provision did have included a language on prevention of and mitigation of social impacts and costs. So in the Chapter 23, Section 2116, required the casinos and also extended to the sports wagering operators to provide, for 23, Chapter 23K, Section 21, it provided an on-site space for an independent substance abuse, compulsive gambling, and mental health counseling service, and established a program to train gaming employees in identifying of and intervention with customers exhibiting problem gambling behavior. To fulfill this mandate, we adopted the Game Sense, an innovative responsible gaming program that equips casino patrons who choose to gamble with information and tools to adopt positive play behaviors, and offers resources to individuals in distress from gambling-related harm. Recently, we completed a evaluation, the Game Sense evaluation, that was presented in a public meeting by Dr. Michael Wall at to sort of discuss sort of the outcome of the evaluation. And today I'm presenting, we'll pass it over to Chelsea at the council to talk about the quarter finding, but I sort of want to lay that foundation. Chelsea, are you available?
Thanks so much, Lon.
Thank you.
Good almost afternoon or late morning, everyone. Thank you, Long, Mark and Bonnie, and of course, Chairman Maynard and all of the commissioners for allowing us the opportunity to present a little bit of what we did this past quarter, but also some annualized data. I'm going to pull up my screen in a second, but with me today, or my slide deck, but with me today are Marlene Warner, the CEO of the Mass Council, as well as Odessa Dwarica, our Chief Programs Officer. And I also wanted to just take a moment to introduce Janine Ruggiero, who's our new Chief Communications Officer, who has definitely hit the ground running and has already been an asset to both the council and Game Sense, is knee deep in RGEM and planning and collaborating with the MGC research team and their ad agency on making sure everything is running smoothly. So I don't know, Janine, if you just want to give a little wave to everybody so that they can see you or say hello quickly, and then I'll pull up my slide deck.
Hi, thank you, Chelsea. Hi, nice to meet everyone.
And I should just say Janine has background in both because the casino industry is obviously as well as in marketing. So she was quite a find for the council, and absolutely thrilled to have her on board.
Awesome, welcome.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And can everybody see this?
Yep.
Okay, I can't see you for whatever reason. So
Yes.
So if people have, we always have questions at the end, but if people have questions along the way, just please speak up. I'm very sensitive to my name, Chelsea, so just say Chelsea and I can stop and we can take it from there. But we have a number of things that we want to talk to you about today. As always, we start with sort of the interaction numbers. I'm going to give you guys annualized data today instead of the quarterly data because we do that once a year, but we have included both in our written report if anybody wants to drill down. Magic moments. I think it's important to talk about these. Sometimes we report them out and sometimes we don't, but
Chelsea?
please know that we always track them.
Chelsea, this is seeing how sensitive you are to your name. I just want to let you know your slides are not advancing. So if you could go to from beginning, it might help to move this along.
Okay.
Yeah, it's showing it in a non-presentation mode.
Yeah, go to the from beginning piece. Yep, right there. Perfect. Thank you.
There's a second. There's usually a
Is it
second.
working now? Marlene, is it working now?
I'm not seeing it working, but I do see you went to the second slide. So Jordan, are you seeing the same, Chairman?
I'm fine with it being in this version, as long as we can advance it. I'm on agenda right now, Chelsea. That's what it's showing.
Yeah, it's supposed to be agenda. Can you see it? I can do it this way. Can you see it now still?
Yes.
All right, we'll just do it this way. So, so magic moments are all of the qualitative data that supports the quantitative data. And these are the stories that we have every single day at the Game Sense centers. So I've just picked out a few of them to highlight. We collect many more than I'm going to share with you today, of course. And please know that those are also always in the reports. They can be useful, just like Jonathan used a couple of them in his presentation today, or when you guys are talking to the press, or in annual reports. But we have tons and tons of magic moments, and that's our heartbeat. Champion Award winners. We always love to highlight the great RG work of our casino employees. These are awards that are given out quarterly to casino employees that have gone above and beyond in the RG space. And Chairman Maynard, thank you so much for always taking the time to write handwritten notes. It does mean a lot to them, and we'll talk more about that later. Community engagement, we just wanted to share some of the things we've been doing out in the community, and different ways we've been collaborating with the different properties. Increasing resource toolbox. So we continue to sort of build the services that we want to have available for patrons and their families and friends. Peer support. So most people are familiar with GA, but there's lots of different types of peer support services out there now, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about how we're expanding in this area. We always are adding to our GameSense library of activities, so we wanted to share quickly a brief snippet from one of them, and then talk to you about some of the other quizzes that we developed this last quarter or upcycled. We'll touch briefly on highlights for fiscal year 25. Can't forget about September. It's a trifecta. We have Responsible Gambling Education Month, which is an initiative of the American Gaming Association, the trade association for casinos and sports betting operators. We also have Recovery Month, and it's also Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So lots happening in September. And then finally, we'll have some personal updates and, of course, questions. And again, please feel to ask along the way. So if you look at this interaction data, I put these charts up, annually, and this is just how I've been tracking the data. I like to look at it quarter over quarter or year over year. And so in looking at this data, you can see we had a 7% increase in simple interactions. Those are, where's the ATM machine, simple questions, but we count them all because, as you all know, that it sometimes takes 15, 20, 40, 50 times before somebody's willing to ask for help. Then the demonstrations and exchanges are more immediate interactions. And when you combine these, we had a 4% increase year over year. I was pretty happy with this because we've had some staffing shortages due to medical leaves and just some natural turnover. So I think these are solid numbers. And then casino related interactions just slightly down, about a 2% decrease year over year. This is kind of the fun slide to look at for me. I know Long reports out a lot on VSEs. We also track the information, but if you look at this, we had a 42% increase in VSEs year over year, a 60% increase in VSEs conducted during the overnight shift, an 81% increase in VSEs conducted remotely. All of this is probably largely due to the onset of sports betting. a 72 increase in VSCs initiated through live chat. So happy that we've gotten that up and running and it's working really well. We had 110 folks who excluded sign up with follow-ups with our peer support team. We can touch on that later. There was an 8% increase in reinstatements, a 73% increase in reinstatements in the overnight shift, 193% increase in reinstatements conducted remotely. You can see the Play My Way is highlighted, and that is because we don't have all the Play My Way data yet from 2 of the properties, so that number is off. So you know, until we have that data, I really can't comment on it. And then basically the raffle entries were flat year over year. It was a 0.1% decrease. Some additional information that wasn't in those charts is that 48% of the interactions were with men, 52% are with women. This has been pretty consistent year over year. And then if you go to the next bullet, you can see that, you know, the majority of our interactions are still, you know, looking between the ages of 35 really and 69. You know, just like in years past, it skews a little bit younger at EBH and a little bit older at PPC, and MGM is kind of in the middle. We had a 25% of the interactions were about game sense generally. We track all of this information that gets included in the written report, but I don't often talk about it at our quarterly meetings. I'm talking about it today because it doesn't change that much quarter to quarter, but I think it's important to talk about at least once a year and know that we're collecting this data. So you can see, you know, most of our interactions are about game sense generally, which is kind of a umbrella bucket category, 14% about budgeting, 14% about Play My Way, 12% about positive play, and so on. You can see that at least almost a third of the folks who VSC'd heard about it from a GSA, 18% from the GameSense website, which is great. 11% was from other, 8% from re-enrollment, 6% from family or friends, and so on. So we do track where folks are hearing about the VSCs. I thought this was a really interesting data point. 86% of folks who VSC'd had not used a play management tool before. And then you'll see some had tried cooling off, some had tried a budget limit or a time limit, and some had tried Play My Way. But I think this is a real opportunity for the GameSense team to hone in on and to try to sort of market better. You know, how do we reach people about the tools that are available, particularly in the online space? It'll be interesting to know more about the sports betting from the sports betting operators about their play management tools and the success or challenges that they're having with getting folks to use these tools. You can see most of our interactions take place pretty much between noon and 10 p.m. at night. They're broken down by blocks, and we pay attention to that for a lot of reasons, including staffing, etc. And then you can see most of our interactions are short, but we also have 5% of interactions that are about 20 minutes or more. And this is good because I think sometimes we focus so much on VSCs, and while VSCs are really important because we want anybody that needs help to get the help that they need, whether that's VSC or something else, the vast majority of what our focus is on responsible gambling, and the data actually shows that. So magic moments are, you know, the stories behind the numbers. And so I'm going to just briefly talk about 3 of them. So we have at MGM, Amy and Aisha. They were had a couple come to the center very frustrated that they couldn't get their tax documents. This actually is not that uncommon. But they had spoken with multiple people and they weren't getting anywhere they want. So Amy and Aisha had developed a relationship with a woman named Naomi, who's the manager of the cage. They walked over, they were able to get everything easily resolved. And I like this example because while it's sort of more of a simple interaction, it's an example of our staff collaborating with the casino staff and having those relationships to get folks the answers that they needed. They even gave Amy and Aisha hugs in the end. Another magic moment is Mark, one of our GSAs at PPC. He had an older patron come in who was looking for her son, and she had lost her phone, and her son was supposed to call her when she had gotten to the property, and she was pretty upset because she couldn't find him and was looking around. So Mark took the time to walk around the property and had her sort of wait, and was able to identify her son based on her description. They were, happy obviously and relieved to find each other. And then Mark used that as an opportunity to talk to them about Game Sense, and they both signed up for Play My Way. So kind of a real win all around. And then the last one is one of our GSAs, Winnie, who speaks a couple of Chinese dialects. And Winnie got a call. I thought this was interesting, and from a VSE who had enrolled in a 5-year term last year, and he had already been caught on the floor, unfortunately, a couple of times, and he was frustrated that the VSE wasn't helping him. And he remembered that we can connect them to regular resources. So he was seeking clinical treatment, and Winnie was able to identify clinical treatment in this gentleman's area, and she did all of that in Mandarin. So just an example of people who have, visited our center and know that while a VSE might be a first step, it might not be the only step. Oftentimes there's sort of layered approaches to helping somebody when they are struggling. So those were 3 of my favorite magic moments from the quarter. And at this point in time, I'm going to kick it over to Janine, who's going to talk about our Champion Award winners.
Perfect. Thank you, Chelsea. Janine Ruggiero again. Okay, at Encore Boston Harbor, we've nominated Michael Burns from the security team. He's known for being an exceptional casino ambassador, going above and beyond to assist guests, educating them about responsible gambling, and often known for walking these guests to the Game Sense Information Center. Second, nominated Javier Fondeca, also from the security team. Javier has been an asset to the Game Sense team by consistently bringing in guests and translating for Spanish-speaking guests, making their experience more comfortable. And then we have Rajaram Malla from Slots. When Rajaram sees a player struggling to have fun, he walks them over to the information center. He proactively seeks out responsible gambling information and will proactively offer these tips to guests. All right, next up, we have MGM. So we have Sandro Gonzalez from security. Sandro was able to communicate with the player about his MGM trespass situation. This cut out the need for a Spanish-speaking advisor on duty. Thus, Sandro also helped make the patron feel much more comfortable. Beverly Nelson from Table Games. Beverly collaborates with GameSense to improve relationships with new staff, alerting them to distressed players and responsible gaming information. She ensures that all relevant staff are informed about problematic activities or any behavior. And then we have Lisa Skaza from Slots. Lisa frequents the GameSense Information Center to discuss any concerning situations of her regular slot players, and she is known for her compassionate and open manner. And then over at Plainridge Park, we have Sarah Collins from security. Sarah deserves the Champion Award for her outstanding dedication to patron satisfaction. Her commitment to going above and beyond for every patron sets her apart. She has exceptional communication skills and creates a positive experience. Hannah Walters, a casino host, was praised for her helpfulness and discretion when 2 unrelated guests were talking about self-exclusion and they needed to take a break from the casino. These guests expressed genuine appreciation for the Game Sense Information Center. And then last at security, we have Cindy. Cindy routinely seeks updated information at GameSense. She will actively participate in quizzes, wants new information, and has engaged with patrons who believe in the GameSense program and it aids in their player protection. She consistently demonstrates compassion to guests and colleagues alike.
Good morning, everybody. Odessa Dwork, Chief Program Officer at the Mass Council.
I wanted to highlight some community outreach in the last quarter. We always want to make Game Sense a household name, and we do that by really getting out of the brick and mortar casinos and going into the community. So this is a wide range of photos from some of the events that our staff were involved in last quarter. So you'll see everything from Lynn Ho and Jody Neely presenting on voluntary self-exclusion and recovery supports in Chinatown at the Asian American Civic Association, to our staff joining the Pride Parade in Springfield with the MGM contingent, to our Game Sense advisor Yolanda using her annual volunteer day at the Women's Lunch Place and Shelter in Boston, and the list goes on and on. I just wanted to highlight a few of those. Next slide. So our resource toolbox, we are always looking for new resources to help patrons. And we know that one of the important ones is around financial literacy. So support around finances is a tremendous resource for everybody, but especially if you're spending part of your income on gambling. So through the support of FanDuel, Operation Hope began implementing its Hope Inside program in Massachusetts. And so this gives all residents access to financial well-being coaches who can offer one-on-one, virtual or in-person financial health sessions anywhere across the state. And so we've met their Massachusetts team. We have Adam, Victor, Amy. They're based in Boston. One's based in Southern Massachusetts, and the other one is based in Western Mass. But again, they travel and they do virtual sessions as well. So not only are they a resource that we can refer people to who are at the casinos or who are contacting us on live chat, but their staff are actually coming into the Game Sense centers, and they're doing trainings for our staff as well. So they're both an internal resource for us and our staff members, as well as for the public. We also have a new relationship with an app called Aviv. So this is a recovery and harm reduction app. It has local resources, national resources, and we're doing a test pilot with them as we speak. So some of you may have met the founder, Sam DeMello. He's great, but probably you've all heard of Dr. Jeff Murata. So he's their chief scientific officer on the app. And one of the things we like about this app is it describes itself as offering support to those who are seeking a healthier relationship with gambling. So it's not just a recovery app, I want to stop gambling. There is support for people who just are identifying that maybe their behavior is getting into the risky or problematic range and they want to walk themselves back. And there's also support in that app for the people who decide that, gambling is just not right for them anymore. So we'll keep you posted on that. Next slide, peer support. So really, since its inception, right, the Mass Council has always been focused on recovery support. It was founded by a gentleman in recovery, but sometimes those services kind of get into the background and we don't talk about them as much as we should. So this effort, I'm going to start with the bottom bullet where we talk about GRIN. This is the Gambling Recovery Information Network, and this is about us bringing our recovery services to the foreground and calling attention to them. It's really a partnership between us and Bet No More. Bet No More is a recovery organization out of the UK. And the partnership is intended to really center the voices of people with lived experience, take the wisdom from their personal narratives, and translate this into evidence-informed programming. And we want to create with this initiative kind of a model of support for people looking to reduce or eliminate problem gambling. Could just be harm reduction. It could be completely eliminating gambling, and also offer support to their loved ones. And so we like to think of GRIN as kind of the umbrella over our recovery support initiatives. And underneath that umbrella, we have LEAP, the Lived Experience Advisory Panel. You've been hearing about the Recovery Advisory Board for a long time now. That name was feeling kind of outdated. We wanted the name to reflect kind of the emerging language in the field. And so it has been rebranded, expanded as the Advisory Experience Panel, Lived Experience Advisory Panel. Right now we have 24 members. 23 of them are individuals who identify as being in recovery from gambling harm. One is a person who has been impacted by spouse's gambling. And I can't stress enough what a powerhouse of a group of people this is. Every single person is doing some incredible thing with their wisdom and experience, and has really translated their experience with gambling harm into something fabulous that they want to share with the world. And so we are going to continue to be bringing their voices to the table to inform our programming and communications, but even more, right? They're taking a bigger place at the table, more seats at the table. So we're very grateful and happy about that. And so finally, Game Sense trainings. As you can imagine, our Game Sense advisors are always in training. They start with a very lengthy onboarding training of many, many hours, and that continues throughout the year, every year. We wanted to just highlight a few of the trainings that they had this quarter. We have the QPR training. This means question, ask, persuade. This is our suicide prevention training. And our Game Sense manager, Mark Leandro, he's actually a trainer for that suicide prevention model. And so he can offer that internally on a regular basis to anybody who needs it or needs a refresher. We're always doing quality assurance and trainings around our live chat and GamLine to make sure those are on top of it. And then we have what we call our Keep It Fresh RG flashcards. The Game Sense advisors are always learning so much, going to so many trainings. So we have this stack of about 50 flashcards at each center. That's a fun way for them to stay on top of what they learned, not lose some of the lessons from all these trainings. It's integrated into meetings. They can just do it off the cuff with each other, and they're constantly being updated and refreshed as well. I think
That's
Marlene
me.
is up.
Yeah. Good late morning, I guess, to all of you. I'm so pleased to be here with all of you. I love when my powerhouse team is here, but I do like to check in every once in a while. So here I am. So we have lots of new activities going on. I'm not going to run you through all of these, but you'll see that we are trying to be pretty diverse in our efforts. All of it relates back to gambling and to whether that be casino, racing, or sports wagering. But we really are trying to target different populations. So the RG late night trivia is to engage those folks that are at the casino at 2 a.m. and find new and innovative ways to connect with those patrons. One of the things we're trying to do is be cognizant that we have a number of different folks that might connect with gambling who are neurodivergent. So a quiz was created around that. May the 4th be with you. Obviously, folks who are Star Wars fans. So a number of different ways that we can do this. And of course, very timely, the Olympics and Paralympics. There have been a number of Game Sense quizzes and activities related to that. So trying to stay current, trying to engage patrons who may have already engaged a number of times with the Game Sense team, but bringing them back over, being able to connect with them with new and fresh information. Next slide. So Be Like Izzy is one of the quizzes. And if you folks haven't gotten a chance to meet Israel, he is terrific. He does go by Izzy. He's been with us for, I think he's in year 6 at this point, with a tremendous gaming background. He is super sweet and super approachable. And I think one of the things we're trying to do, as a reference to Michael Wall's study, is to make sure that we better introduce our Game Sense team and make sure that folks know them and want to connect with them. So using the likeness of Izzy here, and also just talking people through a little bit of what they need to know in a casino. So Be Like Izzy. Once upon a time, there was a guy named Izzy who played all kinds of casino games. Izzy knows a lot about how casino games are played and how to keep it fun. Be like Izzy. Next slide. He's been walking around the casino looking to play a slot machine. He notices that a woman has been playing one machine for a long time and hasn't won. She finally gets up. What would Izzy do? So again, from the perspective, what do these Game Sense advisors do? Grab that slot machine, Izzy knows it is due to hit soon. Or consider playing the machine because he likes that style, but he understands that just because it hasn't hit doesn't mean that it will soon. Next slide. And it gives the correct answer. Consider playing the machine because he likes that style, but he understands that it's not because it hasn't hit. It doesn't mean that it will soon. So Izzy knows that all slot machines run on a random number generator and they are never due just because someone has been playing them all day. He also knows that setting a budget is important. Be like Izzy. So just cute little fun ways that we can introduce the staff and introduce these same concepts, but in new and innovative ways. Next slide. So we have a lot of things going on in FY25. And while this is a report for the last quarter of FY24, we just wanted to give you some highlights. So you've all heard from Michael Wall. You heard from him in a presentation. You also heard from him at the conference in Worcester. But we are trying really desperately to take all the suggestions and implement them this year to the best of our ability and for what the budget allows for. So there's a number of elements already happening, and we have a number of things plugged in for the next 4 quarters through FY25. Also, simultaneously, 2 weeks prior, as you all know, Sigma data came out. And so there's a number of ramifications from that data. So we are also looking at that, our priority populations and who are at most high risk and how do we access them. The last 2 weeks of June, we also had Dr. Michelle Malkin from Eastern Carolina University come in and do an evaluation of both the Mass Council and the GameSense program's approach to the LGBTQI plus communities. We have a ton of recommendations from there that we're working on implementing. I'm kind of very excited about this. We hired Shakana Hoffman, who is our DEI and programs director, who's helping us implement a lot of that, as well as Amy, and I'll talk a little bit more about them down the road. So a lot more you'll be hearing about, and some recommendations we may come to the MGC with in terms of ways that we can partner on some of these elements. ESG, or environmental, social, and governance, which is kind of the update to CSR, corporate social responsibility, is a project that I've been working on with colleagues in Canada and the UK, but I think have a lot of really important ramifications for both GameSense and the MGC. So again, more recommendations to come, but I think ways that we can make some small tweaks and then some larger things for us to think about down the road. Out of the community mitigation dollars that we did have this past year, there was a project funded through the Springfield Department of Health and Human Services, and we are collaborators in that project called the Safe Ride Home Project, looking at the intersection of alcohol and gambling and driving. And we've just completed a study, and we're in the process. We just had a actually phenomenal meeting yesterday looking at the results of that study and some of the implications. And I think there's going to be a lot for us to delve into and think about how can GameSense bring some additional awareness to the intersection of those 3 topics. So more on that soon. And we had a really productive meeting with the Department of Public Health's Office of Problem Gambling Services a few weeks ago in terms of their treatment resources and some of their prevention programming that we hope to highlight and delve into further in terms of helping patrons most in need. Next slide. So coming this September, Chelsea talked a little bit about RGEM, which is Responsible Gaming Education Month, initiative of the American Gaming Association, but something that we have taken and really made our own, customized for GameSense here in Massachusetts, and done so with our, with the 3 licensees in Massachusetts, as well as the, in terms of casinos, and obviously with the sports betting apps last year. So the theme this year, a revival from last year, play it smart from the start. It worked well last year. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, and we want to continue to use that. This is more patron facing. PGAM tends to be more back of the house. So new RG activities coming, weekly tabling in the back of the house to be able to connect a little bit, at least, with the staff at the casinos and then also with the staff at the apps. A number of media toolkits will be sent out. So lots more to come. We kind of don't want to spoil it, but a lot more there. And then Recovery Month and the Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, just trying to pull those 3 together because there really is some synergy there. And we hope to tell you about some exciting results after September. Next slide. And as with any organization, we have a lot going on in terms of staffing. So we have some new title changes. So Ray Fluette is moving into the kind of same job, new title, Director of Game Sense Operations, just a further clarification of what he actually does in this role. But a new job for Amy Gabrilla is that she is moving from the MGM manager role up to a Director of Player Health. So she's going to be working on a lot of the recommendations and the incorporation of the data that we talked about with the staff, helping them to work this into their programming and their day-to-day operations, and helping GSAs understand, kind of translating that knowledge for them. Jason DiCarlo has moved from the evening into the daytime role as the Game Sense manager. Lynn Ho has rejoined our team and is at EBH in the evenings as the Game Sense manager there. Aisha Shambly, a longtime Game Sense advisor, has been elevated up to take on Amy's role as the Game Sense manager at MGM. And Jolynn continues with our team, but over at Plainridge Park Casino. So lots of movement in that manager role. And this is the part I've been dreading, but most of the reason I'm here, which is that tomorrow is Chelsea's last day with us. She's moving on to a new opportunity, and we're so thrilled for her. But we are so sad to leave her go. She has been so smart and steady, and thoughtful and compassionate and intentional with our team for nearly the last 5 years. And so we're thrilled she's moving on to go work with her alma mater. I'll let her tell you more about that. But yeah, so I just hope you all can thank Chelsea for all her hard work with this Game Sense program. It wouldn't be where it is today without all of her hard work and dedication. So with that, I close my presentation and my remarks. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Marlene. So Chelsea, did you want to comment on any of that? I felt like Marlene really built it up, so.
Yeah, I mean, this is well, first, I mean, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and all the commissioners, and the commissioners before you, and the MGC team, especially Mark Long and Bonnie, all my colleagues, obviously, at the council, especially Marlene, and of course, the Game Sense team, who I believe in so much and feel very, very passionate about that program. So it's bittersweet, but I am moving on to work at my former alma mater, which I believe is where Dean also attended college, at Bates College. And so my boys are in school up in Maine, and it's just a little bit closer. It's I've been with the gaming industry for about 14 and a half years on the industry side, and on the public health side, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think, I believe in that the gaming industry provides entertainment, and it also provides a lot of resources to a lot of great causes. So, but I'm also at an age where if I am going to try a career shift or do something different, I can't afford to wait too much longer. So I've always been drawn to higher ed, and I'm super excited about it. It'll be different, but I'll still be in New England, and we'll certainly be out to visit friends and hope to cross paths with many of you in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. I'll open the floor, but I will say you've been here during a period of transition, right? When you think about everything that's opened up and changed over the last 5 years, it's been a lot of work. And so thank you so much for that. I will say that everyone that went to Bates lets people know they went to Bates. Not a comment on you or Dean.
The real beast.
Interim Chair, may I really want to take this time to thank Chelsea for her leadership at the council. And I think it's not known or it's not recognized that the diversity, the DEI with the Game Sense advisor, it's really through Chelsea's leadership at the council, taking that, we bring it up in our meetings, and she takes lead and really sort of promotes that, and not only with the composition of the team, but also a lot of the activities, promoting, some of that diversity of the activities that Marlene outlined. And, I think that is something that she leads with the Game Sense, and it's great. And I just want to sort of acknowledge and really thank Chelsea for all that hard work and really pushing diversity and inclusion into the game sense.
Thank you, Lon. Commissioner O'Brien, I see your mic off.
Yeah, I did. You had the same thought that I did. You know, former CEC Heather Hall probably would have chimed in about Bates too. So yeah, people have a way of letting it be known when they're there. So good for you. I'm happy you have that opportunity. Always bittersweet to see, you know, someone leave who's great that we're going to miss, but it's great that you've got another opportunity for family and for your professional advancement. But you sat through 5 years with a lot of changes in the industry between the openings and the pandemic and online. And you've been a steady hand. I know Mark and Lon and Bonnie are going to miss you too, but good luck. Congratulations.
Chairman Maynard, if I could just add one comment. Go Bobcats. Go Chelsea. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner.
So first, excellent presentation. Chelsea, I cannot believe you're going to miss more of the good stuff, I should say. There's a lot of jam-packed, it's this jam-packed, you know, chock full of greatness that's coming down the pike. But nonetheless, wish you well in your endeavor and congratulations on your new position, and please stay in touch. It was really nice to have you before us during it's only been 2 years for me, approximately, a little over actually, but really nice to have met you, and thank you for your work.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Any other comments, commissioners, to Chelsea or on the presentation itself?
If Chair Maynard, if I may, I completely agree with what Long said that
Director Van der Linden, if I can cut you off for a second. Your mic is, you're not very clear.
It's echoing, Mark.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. What Long said is absolutely true. Every aspect of the Game Sense program, its DEI has been embedded and is an incredibly high priority. And I think that is part of the success of the program, that we are representative of the community and responsive to the community's needs. Game Sense, we stood Game Sense up, about 10 years ago, a little less, and it has not been easy. It's a new program with some new ideas, and it's constantly changing and evolving. And it requires a lot of staff over throughout the state. And Chelsea has brought a steady hand to bring some stability to the program. And I genuinely appreciate all of it. So Chelsea, thank you so much for your service to the council, to the commission, and most importantly to individuals who are experiencing gambling related harm or trying to prevent gambling related harm in their lives.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Well, thank you again, Chelsea, and we appreciate hearing these quarterly reports, and I appreciate writing those letters that you talked about, Chelsea. I mean, it's just amazing with those winners and what they do. They really go above and beyond their job, right? To share the program. And so with that, anything else, Director Van der Linden? It was good to see you, Marlene.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
Yeah,
thanks for the opportunity.
We recently ran into each other at the NCPG conference, and Jody Neely was there, who I always have to wonder what she's thinking.
Well, she appreciated the opportunity, yes. And, it is funny that you and I see more of each other out of the state than we do in the state, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
That is true. All right, commissioners, it is 11:50. Do we need a break or do we want to turn to IEB?
A nice 5-minute break would be helpful.
we'll do a 5-minute break to transition. We'll meet at 11:55. All right, Connor, I think we can take down the screen, see who's here. Sorry, it took me a minute or two longer. All right, looks like we have everybody here. I see Caitlin, Councilor Kennedy, Councilor Kramer. All right. This is a reconvening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. Since we're holding this virtually, we'll do a roll call. Good afternoon, Commissioner O'Brien.
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Hill.
Hello, I'm here.
And good afternoon, Commissioner Skinner.
Good afternoon.
We're going to move to item number 6 on our agenda. And for that, we have a few matters to discuss. We're going to kick it over to Director Caitlin Monahan. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, 12:01. Good afternoon, everyone. We do have a few matters for you today. The first 2 matters relate to briefing on non-compliance matters. So just as a reminder, this is the point at which the IEB gives a brief overview of potential non-compliance matters, and then the commission decides how it would like to move forward with them. The first will be presented by Nate Kennedy, Enforcement Counsel, and the second will be presented by Zach Mercer, Enforcement Counsel. After that, we have 2 recommendations for assessment of civil administrative penalties. They are both for the same operator, MGM Springfield, and for violation of the same statute and regulation, although they are 2 different matters. So, and those will be handled by Deandra. So you'll get the full range of the CEC's office today. So with that, I'm happy to hand the first non-compliance matter off to Nate.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Nathaniel Kennedy on behalf of the IEB. This matter comes before the Commission as an instance of non-compliance by Category 3 sports wagering licensee BetMGM. On June 26, 2024, MGC received a report on behalf of BetMGM. They'd hired GLI to perform an audit of their platform to ensure compliance with Massachusetts prohibited sports wagering markets. After they had previously discovered on their platform that they had been offering some prohibited markets, you may remember the soccer penalty card and player prop markets that are being dealt with now. So GLI performed a review and determined that BetMGM had been allowing betting on events where Belarus and Russia were participants in violation of Massachusetts Gaming Catalog Prohibition, which is also a violation of Regulation 205 CMR 24701, 205 CMR 24701-2I, and Massachusetts Sports Wagering Catalog line 11. It was determined that there were 2,221 wagers placed between March 24th, 2023 and June 11th, 2024 for a total handle of $2,324.14. The majority were Belarusian wagers. However, there were 4 instances of wagers on Russian teams. So with that, I would yield to the Commission for guidance on next steps, how we will proceed.
Thank you, Councilor Kennedy. Commissioners, what are we thinking on this one? Commissioner O'Brien.
So can I ask IEB, how have we been handling the other events that were outside the catalog? This is not statutory. This was our discretionary call.
Yep.
Is this the first time we're looking at offering wagers on a discretionary outside the catalog?
I can maybe take a first stab at that, Nate. I think that there has been one other matter that actually Nate presented involving PSI, where basketball was offered outside of Division 1, which was a catalog violation. In addition, it wasn't a statutory violation. And that one was sent back to the IEB for review and is pending. So if that helps at all in terms of context, that is one that has come before the Commission before with a sports wagering catalog violation that was sent to the IEB.
Okay. I would be inclined to treat them the same. So I would be inclined to do the same process for this then.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, we had a long conversation on why we did what we did on this and how we made that discretionary decision that I think would be informative to the IEB. It's already on the record, so same thing. Commissioner Skinner?
Same. I sent it back to the IEB to review.
Thank you.
Counselor. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to Zach for the next matter.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. This alleged non-compliance incident involves temporary Category 3 sports wagering licensee.
You have the same issue Director Vanderlinden did earlier.
Let me see if I can mute and... Any better?
So there's a mic. If you go to the mic button in the left-hand corner, you can select another microphone. I think that's what Director Vanderlinden did earlier.
Better now?
Yes.
There we go. The one apparently same as system does the trick. This alleged non-compliance incident involves temporary Category 3 sports wagering licensee Betfair Interactive doing business as FanDuel Sportsbook. It involves a FanDuel employee placing wagers on the platform. Procedurally, 205 CMR 238.321 requires operators to submit an internal control that prohibits employees from placing sports wagers with the sports wagering operator. FanDuel did submit an internal control, which includes a prohibition on employees placing wagers as required by that regulation. On May 14th, 2024, FanDuel discovered that an employee engaged in sports wagering activity in Massachusetts, placing 33 sportsbook wagers totaling $542 between April 19th and April 21st of 2024. This was reported to the Commission on May 24th of 2024. Upon discovery of the violation, the employee's account was suspended and all wagers were settled as losses. The Commission and the Bureau have authority to enforce violations of an operator's internal controls under 205 CMR 238.0210. Now, obviously, this is the first instance of an incident of this nature. The IAB is interested in the Commission's guidance on this matter and how it wishes to proceed, obviously with the same options as the last matter.
Commissioners, how do we feel? Commissioner Skinner, I see your mic off.
Yeah, so thanks, Zach. When you say allowed an employee to wager, is that as in with knowledge or as in failed to safeguard against?
So I would define it as, just as a little background, FanDuel employees are allowed to have accounts for internal pools and for daily fantasy, apparently. This is someone who then placed wagers. It was later caught that they had done it. It wasn't as though my reading of the reporting from FanDuel isn't as like a knowing violation. It's that this person placed it, they found it, and then took action following that.
Okay. All right. Well, given that you pointed out that this is the first time that this set of facts is being presented to the Commission to consider, I would be interested in having this come before the Commission in an adjudicatory hearing.
How would you want the IEB to be treated, Commissioner?
I just party as witness that question. I think I mean, you know, Commissioner O'Brien is probably going to disagree with me, but I think I would want to see them proceed as a witness instead of a party. But the cadence of these in terms of consensus, how they've been going so far, is that the desire is that IEB participates as a party. So open to discussion on that.
Commissioner Hill, I see your mic off. Commissioner O'Brien, whoever wants to go first.
Oh, Commissioner O'Brien, please.
You can go first, Commissioner Hill.
I actually disagree. I have no problem sending this back for review. I think it's pretty cut and dry. I'm not sure that it needs to come before us. I think it can be handled very well by IEB.
So you're going to get the trifecta, I guess. Yeah, I mean, Commissioner Skinner called it. I'm in alignment with her, but I would say I don't see a lot of room or reasons a lot of times to do as a witness versus as a party. I think they're more effective as a party. Kind of disturbed that this happened. I've got a lot of questions, you know, how long was the employee there? I did not realize that they allow them to do DFS, that sort of thing, which is an interesting call. What are the safeguards in terms of how someone was able to do this? Doesn't seem like they necessarily have the internal controls or had the time potentially how to block this. So I think IEB functions more effectively as a party. And I guess maybe I have some more questions, Commissioner Hill, that I'm in alignment with Commissioner Skinner on path, but I would move to have them be a party to be most effective.
I'm sitting here thinking of all sorts of questions I have too, Commissioner O'Brien, Commissioner Skinner. I mean, this is a rhetorical question. I'm not asking for it to be answered. Actually, please don't answer it, but how did they catch it? Right? And was it caught off a win? Was it caught off a loss? That's interesting to me. But nevertheless, I think they move more efficiently when IEB does act as a party. And so for that reason, because we have to go back and forth with questions otherwise, for that reason, I would agree with Commissioner O'Brien, but I also agree with Commissioner Skinner on the ultimate path, which is I would like to hold on to this as a commission. How are we feeling, commissioners, on direction?
I don't know. Question: does Commissioner Skinner want to say okay to party, or does
Yeah,
Commissioner-
that's what I was just about to say. I anticipated this would come out this way, and so I'm fine with proceeding in the way that is suggested. That being IEB, I'm sorry, the commission retaining the matter with IEB functioning as a party.
We can always ask for additional questions, Commissioner Skinner. That's the other reason I'm comfortable. So, Zach, do you have what you need from us?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Director Monahan.
Great, thank you. We're now slightly changing gears. I'm going to turn this over to Deandra to walk through two civil administrative penalties, or rather the IEB's recommendation of civil administrative penalties. And at this point, we would seek the commission's input in as to whether it would like to approve the recommendations or take the recommendations up as an adjudicatory hearing. With that, I'll turn it to Deandra.
Thank you, Caitlin. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. There are two matters I will be presenting today for your consideration. For the first matter, the IEB is presenting its recommendation that the Commission assess a civil administrative penalty in the amount of $22,500 upon MGM Springfield, or MGM, for a noncompliance incident occurring between November 10th and 11th, 2023. The statute and regulation implicated in the violation are Mass General Law, Chapter 23N, Section 3, and 205 CMR 247.012A2. The IEB originally briefed the Commission of this non-compliance event on February 1st, 2024, at which point the Commission decided to assign this matter to the IEB pursuant to 205 CMR 232.011A. Just to refresh the Commission's memory, the facts of this incident involved wagering on a non-tournament Massachusetts collegiate basketball game. One $5 wager was placed as part of an 8-leg parlay in which two unrelated legs of the parlay had already lost, making it a losing wager overall. On July 16th, 2024, the IEB submitted its recommendation to the Commission, which is included in your packet today. As outlined in the recommendation, the IEB investigated this matter, had further discussions with MGM concerning the cause of the incident, and reviewed the remedial measures taken. During the IEB's review, no additional information was uncovered that would materially change the nature of the noncompliance as originally presented to the Commission. MGM was responsive and communicative throughout this process and is in agreement with the IEB's recommendation. Based upon IEB review, communications with the operator, review of a prior incident, and guidance from the Commission, the IEB is recommending that the Commission assess a $22,500 civil assessment upon MGM. At this stage, the IEB is asking the Commission to vote for one of the two available options pursuant to 205 CMR 232.023A and B, which are to, number one, adopt the IEB's recommendation as the Commission's final decision, or number two, reject the IEB's recommendation and issue a notice of intent to adopt a separate recommendation following an adjudicatory hearing. The IEB is, of course, happy to answer any questions the Commission may have prior to making its decision.
Thank you, Councilor Franks. Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the work that went into this and thank the staff for the work that they did. And I actually agree with what they have put forth before us.
Same.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Commissioner Hill.
I would move that pursuant to 205 CMR 232.022, the commission adopt the IEB's recommendation of the issuance of a civil administrative penalty in the amount of $22,500 for an incident of noncompliance with the requirements set forth in GL Chapter 23N, Section 3, and 205 CMR 247.012A2 regarding the offering of a wagering on a regular season Northeastern University men's basketball game versus LaSalle.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
I vote yes 4-0. On to the next matter.
Great, happy to move to the second matter. The IEB is presenting its recommendation that the commission assess a civil administrative penalty in the amount of $25,000 upon MGM Springfield, or MGM, for a noncompliance incident occurring between December 29th and 30th, 2023. The statute and regulation implicated in the violation are again Mass General Law, Chapter 23N, Section 3, and 205 CMR 247.012A2. The IEB originally briefed the commission of this non-compliance event on February 15th, 2024, at which point the commission decided to assign this matter to the IEB pursuant to 205 CMR 232.011A. Just to refresh the commission's memory, the facts of this incident involved wagering on a non-tournament Massachusetts collegiate basketball game. 6 total wagers were placed for a total amount just under $200. 1 was a straight wager, which won and was paid out. 4 out of 5 were parlay wagers that lost on other legs, so the entire bets were losers. And 1 parlay wager only lost on the prohibited leg, so the player was paid out based on the approved legs of the parlay. On July 16th, 2024, the IEB submitted its recommendation to the commission, which is included in your packet. As outlined in the recommendation, the IEB investigated this matter, had further discussions with MGM concerning the causes of the incident, and reviewed the remedial measures taken. During the IEB's review, no additional information was uncovered that would materially change the nature of the noncompliance as originally presented to the commission. MGM was responsive and communicative throughout this process and is in agreement with the IEB's recommendation. Based upon IEB review, communications with the operator, review of prior incidents, and guidance from the commission, the IEB is recommending that the commission assess a $25,000 civil assessment upon MGM. At this stage, the IEB is asking that the commission vote for one of the 2 available options pursuant to 205 CMR 232.023A and B, which are to number 1, adopt the IEB's recommendation as the commission's final decision, or number 2, reject the IEB's recommendation and issue a notice of intent to adopt a separate recommendation following an adjudicatory hearing. Again, the IEB is happy to answer any questions the commission may have prior to making its decision.
So I feel the same way about this one. This is essentially a contemporaneous offense. So I'm fine with adopting and accepting the recommendation.
Yeah, I am too. I had a question though, if I could ask that. Deandra, were wagers available on the app? The other report explicitly said that the wagers connected to that matter were not available on the app. Is that the same for this instance as well, for this event?
I know that all wagers for this event were placed at a kiosk. I can clarify with the operator if they were available on the app. I don't believe they were.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I was just wondering if there was something to be taken away from the fact that it didn't specifically state that they weren't available on, the wagers weren't available on the app like the other report did. So I'm good. Thank you.
We have a motion. Thank you, Commissioner Skinner.
I move that pursuant to 205 CMR 232.022, that the commission adopt the IEB's recommendation for the issuance of the civil administrative penalty in the amount of $25,000 for the incident of noncompliance we just discussed with the requirements set forth in General Law, Chapter 23N, Section 3, and 205 CMR 247.012A2 regarding the offering of excuse me, wagering on a regular season UMass Amherst men's basketball game versus Siena College.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes 4-0. Thank you, Counselor, and thank you to the IEB. Anything else for you, Director Monahan?
Nothing else at this point in time. We'll circle back with you at the end of the meeting for an executive session. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that said, we are going to move on to item number 7. And for that, we are going to go to, I have Director Band down here, but I see Andrew Steffen. Sports wagering. We're going to go to sports wagering.
Director Ban is enjoying some sunshine down in Florida this week. So we're going to start with a few items from our division. The DraftKings request to void wagers pursuant to 205 CMR 238.35 Section 2. Beginning on page 82 of your packet, we have provided a brief memo from our division, an incident report provided by DraftKings, a breakdown of wagers DraftKings is requesting to void, and lastly, DraftKings response with regards to 238.35 Section 2 subsection C. And just a brief synopsis before we can look at some reg language here. The incident, as outlined in the memo, occurred when DraftKings uploaded a document and offered wagering for a Formula One race with the incorrect spelling of a single driver, Guan Yu Zhou. The incorrect spelling replaced the U at the end of Guan Yu with an A to make it Guan Ya. Simultaneously, DraftKings also offered wagers on the correct spelling of the driver as well. Per the submitted incident report, DraftKings states that this is an obvious error due to the spelling mistake and is requesting the void per the regulations. And commissioners, it might be helpful if we look at some regulation language together. I have it ready to share if we want to quickly walk through that. Would that be okay? Or do we not need it?
Sure, we good with that? Please move forward.
Sure. Can everyone see the reg language here?
Yep.
Perfect. Yes. Okay, so 238.35 addresses canceled or voided wagers. Section 1 of this regulation outlines all the ways that an operator may void a wager without approval from the commission. This ranges from a canceled event or a player not participating in an event to a venue change or changes to rules by a sports governing body. However, obvious errors do not fall under this category and would therefore need to be approved by the commission to be voided. And this is outlined, as I scroll down here, in Section 2 of 238.35. The operator must address 3 items, sections A through C, when submitting the request, which DraftKings promptly provided. The 3 items include a description of the wagers, description of any facts relevant to the request, and an explanation why voiding the wager is in the best interest of the Commonwealth or ensures integrity of the industry. DraftKings provided their response to that final item and can be found on page 87 of your packet. Is everyone ready if I stop sharing?
Yep.
All right. The timeline of events are as follows. On Friday, June 28th, DraftKings submitted the request to our division after discovering a spelling error on the driver. The incorrect spelling error was offered on their platform from June 24th through June 27th, and a total of 13 wagers were placed by 9 individual customers for a total stake of $15.76. DraftKings caught the error 3 days prior to the June 30th race. The driver eventually finished the race a lap down in 17th place, and as all wagers on the incorrect spelling were placed on the drivers to either win or finish in the top 4, all wagers would result in a loss if not voided. DraftKings is requesting the void in order to return the initial stake to the customers, where if you look on the wager breakdown provided by DraftKings, the average wager is roughly $1. And then lastly, commissioners, you may notice on the incident report a liability number for $246,439. This number is what DraftKings would be on the hook for had the wagers won. Had Joe won the race or finished in the top 4, DraftKings could be liable for nearly that $250,000 number. I should also note that wagers on the incorrect spelling of the driver were only parlayed with the correct spelling. meaning the customers caught the error and parlayed the error with the correct spelling of the driver in hopes of a bigger payout had the driver won or finished in the top 4. And we do have DraftKings Senior Director of Regulatory Operations, Jake List, on the meeting to help answer any specific questions you may have as well. However, with that, our division has confirmed that DraftKings meets the requirements of 238.35 Section 2, and we would recommend that these 13 wagers be voided in order for the funds to return to the 9 customers here in Mass. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. I will point out we know factually they were parlays. I can't say factually why they did the parlays, and I imagine that would be difficult for you to do too. Commissioners, questions for Andrew and team?
I have a question. So just to confirm, the 9 bettors, the 9 bettors that we're talking about here, they placed a wager on both the incorrect driver spelling and the correct driver spelling. Is that
correct? Okay. And those are the only wagers placed on the incorrect were those that were parlayed with the correct spelling.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yeah, so for me, this was a factual impossibility, right? The driver didn't exist. And so I've always viewed obvious errors as that sort of thing. Like, is it factually impossible? And to me, it would have been factually impossible for a driver who doesn't exist to win. And so I think the void is appropriate.
Commissioner Hill?
I'm in full agreement. Ready to make a motion if everybody's ready.
I'm in agreement, but sorry, Chair, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Commissioner Skinner, and then I do have something to say after Commissioner Hill.
I'm in agreement with Commissioner O'Brien. I think too, on top of that is the fact that it's implied that these bettors were aware of the error and therefore made a point to do the dual wagers so that they, can capitalize on the error. So that's concerning to me, and I'm not interested in incentivizing that by denying the void request here.
That's definitely an inference you can draw. My only comment was also DraftKings has offered to give the money back, the initial stakes, and to vote otherwise would actually be probably to the detriment of the bettor, actually, in this particular situation. So I think it makes sense across the board, and I appreciate Jake you being here to engage with us today.
Thanks, Commissioner Maynard.
Commissioner Hill?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the DraftKings request to void wagers as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today, and authorize staff to issue a written order pursuant to 205 CMR 238.354.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner?
Aye.
And I vote yes 4-0.
Perfect.
Thank you, Andrew.
Sticking with DraftKings, next up is a House Rules change request beginning on page 88 of your packet. DraftKings has submitted several changes to their House Rules, primarily revisions for settlement clarifications, and addition of new language to address new market types or offerings, very similar to what we've seen and approved from other operators in recent requests. We can walk through these changes briefly, starting on page 90 of your packet, where you can see the red line changes DraftKings has submitted. The first sport up is basketball, where you can see the revisions and additions. For example, they would offer new markets for largest comeback and next player to record a certain stat, whether it be a point, rebound, assist, or a steal. They have also revised several current markets to include further language to help their customers. And just as a reminder, as we move forward, these changes, most of the settlement clarification changes come from real life scenarios where an operator has identified a deficiency in their rules and covers these scenarios should they happen again. Moving on down, their tennis rules have been revised for tiebreaker language. They've also revised spreads and totals markets, providing much more clarification, adding that settlement language to total games for a certain set, correct score for a certain set, and so on. They've also added a new market for stage of elimination for a tennis player. For football, they've added several new market types as they prepare for the upcoming football seasons. A few of the new markets include a 3-point conversion, which can occur in the United Football League, the UFL, an octopus, which is one of my favorite terms here, or a player who scores a touchdown and immediately scores the 2-point conversion on the very next play for a total of 8 points, hence the term octopus. A 3-and-out market, a quarterback sneak market, a flea flicker market. And I imagine we'll see other operators request changes in the coming weeks prior to the football season as well, just to get those new market offerings for their customers. Baseball.
Andrew has frozen for me.
The bigger changes in this request.
Andrew,
yeah, I feel like I just cut out. I just got the internet connection unstable. Yeah, so baseball has a single market edition. They have a fairly robust offering of baseball markets available. Nothing to change here, but we could see changes down the road as we approach the off season or towards the postseason as we approach the off season as well. Cricket is one of the bigger changes in this request today. They've added several new markets for the sport while also taking a few and breaking them down even further for top batter or bowler per inning. They've also removed markets, as you can see those stricken out in the red line on pages 97 and 98. And without knowing much about the sport, from our division, it's hard to look at these rules and say they're okay to approve. So we looked at other operators' house rules for cricket, and while the language isn't word for word and identical, many of the same terms and markets can be identified across all the other operators. From our investigation into the sport rules for cricket, nothing here at DraftKings is requesting stands out as unordinary or something that we don't already have approved for the sport of cricket and other house rules here in Massachusetts. As we wrap up here, moving on to golf, several of their current markets now include clarification language to help the customer in specific scenarios, such as end of round leader or top specified finish. 2 new markets included here today are player finishing position and outright betting, including the field. And lastly, there are slight settlement clarification changes made to the lacrosse and sailing general rules. And it has been the recurring theme for most of our operators' change requests. All the revisions or settlement clarification only help the customer better understand what they're wagering on and how it'll be settled based on real life specific scenarios. All additional markets are just the operator's way of reaching more customers with more availability for them to wager on. We do still have Jake List on the meeting to help answer any specific questions. However, our division has confirmed after an extensive review that DraftKings has met the requirements pursuant to 247.02 and recommends the approval of these house rule changes today. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Commissioners, questions?
I have no questions, and I think it's pretty straightforward, Mr. Chairman, and I would be okay with the changes moving forward.
I think that was very comprehensive by Andrew too. Any questions I had, he pretty much took care of. Commissioner O'Brien, Commissioner Skinner, I think you're good, Commissioner Hill.
I move that the commission approve the updates to DraftKings house rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
You, Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes, 4-0. So thank you again, Jake. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jake.
Thanks for having me, commissioners.
All right, we're now moving on to Manager Boschman. Hi, Crystal.
Good afternoon. So, given this is the commissioner's conversation, I just provided a bit of background on packet page 103 related to these better limits or wagering limits. which notes that the original roundtable discussion on this item took place on May 21st, 2024, and that while all our sports wagering operators were initially slated to attend, only Bally's did appear. And since then, we've had conversations with each operator. They have each expressed to Andrew and I a willingness to have a discussion with the commission regarding this issue, should it be limited to operators only. As you know, we've had individual meetings with the operators on this topic over the past few months, so we did also compile some generalized points, themes, and ideas in the memo, which summarize some of the particular elements that the operators brought up during those sessions. And I think I turn it over to you at this point, Commissioner Maynard, to let you guys have that conversation.
Thank you, Crystal, and I appreciate you putting this information together so we can start at least from one talking point, or at least one point in which we could have a discussion is what I'm trying to say. So commissioners, I will go ahead and start by saying this. I hope that I'm just going to say it on the record, that every operator will come and join us and do so in good faith. It's my understanding that they want to. I hope they continue to want to. We need to learn. There are ways we could do it that would be, a little less optional. And I don't want us to go that route. I want us to have a good conversation, a good relationship as we have, and I want to continue to have it. So I'll start there. That's where I'll start, is I want to have the conversation. Commissioners?
I agree with you. The concern that I'm having with this offer of, just us, just the operators is, there are two sides, if not more, to every story. And we heard the non-operator side for the most part the last time because they chose not to come. I absolutely would like to have the conversation with them. The concern that was raised earlier was the OML requirements we have and the limited options for executive session did not line up ideally with what they wanted, right? Because they wanted to be able to potentially say things to us about their business model that they did not want to share in public. And so I'm curious whether there's been any change, nuance to that conversation, because I'd hate to get in the same scenario where we queue something up and then they say, we can't, or we can say very minimal. The other concern that I have is, and they make some valid points about some of the voices that are on the better side, but that does not mean necessarily that what's being said is not valid in the conversation. And so when I was at the conference last week, there was a whole panel on players, right? And trying to get their voices heard. And this was a big topic of this, right? Looking at the arc of how things went in Europe, looking at, this theory of, ban or bankrupt, right? That if you are doing well, they ban you. If you're doing poorly, they pull you into VIP and they bankrupt you. So this is a deeper conversation to have. And Commissioner Maynard, I think you and I had this conversation too about structuring this, right? Where you do not have disrespectful talking over, but you have both voices being heard. I don't ideally want to have us and our staff take our time doing separate meetings, one for operators and then come back and hear from bettors. I'd ideally like to do it in one format, whether that is, one goes first and then the other while they're, listening to each other. I don't know, but I don't want to cut players out. And I do want to make sure that we've addressed to the extent we can the concerns the operators raised about talking to us in a way that doesn't make them uncomfortable about their business practices.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. I guess I'll pick out one piece of that, but for the legal team, which is, has anything changed as far as our advice and how we can move forward on anything that would need to be in some sort of executive session?
Not that I'm aware of. I think we're still where we were before. There's really no mechanism in the law to talk about this issue privately.
I will point out to the operators, because we do have to do our work in public, If there's an argument to be made, you can make that argument if you are part of the conversation. And it's harder to do so just on the written record. When you're actually here, there could be a potential here, right, that we're not thinking of. We don't know everything. But you have to be part of the conversation to invoke that argument. It would be my thoughts on this. And so I agree also, before I kick it over to, I see you, Commissioner Hill, with Commissioner O'Brien's point of, as long as these 4 commissioners are on this commission, no one's going to be abused in a commission meeting. It just won't happen. And so, we can structure it. And I'm thinking back to Commissioner O'Brien, the Players Association and the league's conversation we had early on during sports wagering, where we had one go first and then another. It was the same day, but it was one and the other. And so I'm open to that too. Whatever it takes to be educated. Commissioner Hill.
If anything I know about this commission is we are flexible. And I think Commissioner O'Brien has touched upon an idea that I have been thinking about since the beginning, which is you have the operators come on in the first half of a conversation for an hour and a half. We have that discussion, and then we bring on the bettors in a second half of a conversation. There's no reason we can't do that. And I think it would be beneficial for us to do it that way, actually. We've had a request by our operators that I think we can agree to, and we've also let the bettors know that we will give them an opportunity. And all 4 of us have said publicly that that's going to happen. I'm not going to backtrack on that. I think we can set something up, Mr. Chairman, where we can do a first half and a second half. And I think together, the 4 of us can come up with questions for both groups, the operators and then the bettors. We've got some smart minds here that I think we can pull this off. So my suggestion would be a follow-up to Commissioner O'Brien, is that we have one meeting and we do it in halves. It's successful in other things we've done over the last few years that I've been here, and there's no reason it can't work.
I agree, Commissioner Hill, and I will also say we would invite the responsible gaming community too, as we did last time, and I know Marlene Warner would like to be involved, and that's fine with me. Commissioner Skinner.
Yeah, I think determining the structure of the roundtable or the public meeting, however we term it, is the easy part. I'm okay with moving forward in the manner that Commissioners O'Brien and Hill have suggested, in terms of having 2 parts, if you will, to this session. I think the focus needs to be more so on the substance of the meeting. I said last time, I'm not interested in having another roundtable just to have the operators come before us to say they can't talk. So I think, part of this discussion is to develop some questions, I think, that we can pass on to the operators. And, I think that's where we need to focus our attention at this point is given that our legal counsel has just confirmed that we cannot take this discussion into an executive session, what will be the substance of the conversation? And I'd like the operators to understand that this isn't just for show. This isn't just for having a meeting, calling a meeting just for the sake of doing that. It really is, as Chair Maynard said, a way for us to be educated around this issue. It is in the operator's best interest to come and talk to us and tell us what they need us to know as we consider the matter. But under no circumstance am I interested in just convening a meeting, for the operators to save face, show up this time, and then say, gee, we can't say anything. We can't answer your questions.
I agree with that, Commissioner Skinner, that sentiment. And I would also say this, to me, there's a very different distinction between getting into the nitty gritty numbers of their operation and why they may not want to share that. But we're having a larger conversation here. We're having a larger policy conversation. And it's hard for me to believe that the operators don't have an opinion on this policy decision that we may or may not make. And that's the other piece I want to say before we talk about questions is, ultimately there could be some regulations that come out of this. And what I would pose to the operators today in public is, do you want to be a part of the conversations that help develop those, or do you want to be reactive to whatever comes out? And I would hope that they would want to be a part of it.
That's right. I prefer the former. And to your point, Chair Maynard, those questions from May 21st, I think they are at a minimum. I think those should be presented again to the operators. The first roundtable that we tried to hold on this topic. I do have some additional questions to add, and when you're ready, we can go through those. I'll yield and let Commissioner O'Brien add in her comment.
Thank you.
No, so the chair basically said what I was going to say, which is the other way to move forward with the conversation is we say to legal, give me a draft reg. Then that's the jumping off point, right? We're going to give it another go in terms of trying to get the full picture, the best picture we can in moving forward. I don't really love a roundtable at this point. I mean, as Commissioner Skinner said, we tried it. They chose not to come. I absolutely want to hear from them, but I actually think a public meeting that has us listed on the agenda, they can certainly, we can have, including but not limited to in terms of, helping to guide the conversation. But I'm sure we all have questions that we would like to ask. And there may be some awkward circumstances where they say they don't want to answer because they feel that you're getting into trade secrets or competitive disadvantage, et cetera. And it's not. And then we have a body really have to choose which direction do we want to go, which is at that point, do you do a draft reg? And then have the conversation go from there. I would like to give this one more shot at a conversation with both sides before any pen is put to paper on a reg. But I would like to see it in the form of a public meeting, properly agended with some questions written. I do not feel the need to write every single question out in advance. I do not want to hamstring any of the four of us with someone coming back saying, well, I wasn't prepared to ask that particular nuanced part of the question because it wasn't listed. So I'm loath to get into too much detail on that.
Yeah, we always reserve that right, even the first time. I will say this, a couple of things, and Commissioner Skinner, I want to hear what you have to add. One is, they've been, to Commissioner Skinner's point, the operators have now been sitting with these particular questions that are in the packet today for a long time. It was actually 2 or 3 weeks before we had the meeting the first time. So, these are things that theoretically they've had an opportunity to think about. But this commission always reserves the right to ask any question of any person at any time, and we always will. With that said, Commissioner Skinner, thoughts on additions?
Yeah, the only thing I can think of, and I'm pretty consistent in my requests about any policies that we're considering for data. I'd like to understand what data is available that the operators would be willing to share. We could compel, if need be, with the commission relative to how many individuals are limited and why, and how does that compare to the number of VIPs that they have. And I publicly, DraftKings indicated that less than 1% of their entire betting network, I think I want to say, and I'm not sure of the equivalent terminology, but less than 1% of their wagers, their bettors are limited. I want to see case studies around, if possible, around what those circumstances are. How did an individual come to be limited? Is that individual, was it for RG reasons? It just really talk to us about what it is that you're seeing, because we don't know what's out there. We know what has been reported to us in public comments. And, to a point that I think has been made over and over again over these several weeks is there are two sides to every story. And we'd like to really get a response from the operators on some of these questions. So data is where I come in here with just a request. It's all about transparency and fairness. I think some of these questions are already included in the May 21st set of questions, but what communication is provided to the bettor when they are limited? And to Commissioner O'Brien's point, I don't think it's reasonable for us to go through every question that we anticipate asking, but really just to begin the conversation. I think we have a good set of questions to launch into this.
So I'm re-looking at these questions. I am interested in what's going on internationally. And Commissioner O'Brien did bring up, I believe, Australia, which I've not seen anything on yet, but
I think it was racing. The racing in Australia, I think, has a limit.
And
It's only racing.
Yeah.
And I did talk to the chairman of the UK Gaming Commission, and I know they're thinking about these topics too. And so I'm interested to see internationally what's going on vis-a-vis really tails into Commissioner Skinner's question on data specifically. And, you know, I've been thinking aloud to myself lately. It could be worked into a quarterly report. How many people were banned this quarter and what category they were banned in. Thinking specifically to Brianne's comment around the fact that sometimes they were miscategorized. So anyways, thinking and that comes from the last roundtable. I'm happy with referring to this as just a full meeting, Commissioner O'Brien, to that point. I don't know how my fellow commissioners.
Fine with me, Mr. Chairman.
I think I missed the point there. Sorry, full meeting versus
A roundtable. Roundtable, it may sound like semantics, but a roundtable is a little more less formal. To Commissioner O'Brien's point, and you know, making sure that they understand this is a very strong request this time.
Yeah, another
okay with that.
In another area in terms of, you know, you talk about proposed legislation as a potential jumping off point. And I was thinking about that too, in terms of, is step one really requiring reporting stats in? And then there's also the function of, you know, if we start to get stats that aren't making sense or that we want to deeper dive in, you know, there's always audit functions that this agency has, both sports wagering and IEB, to do deeper dives once we have data. If it's not making sense or we're getting information from other parties that's not what they're seeing or feeling, there's always that audit feature of going in a way that protects what's business practices, but also would give us a better understanding of what's going on behind the numbers. But I like the idea of the quarterlies including stats and or reports going to sports wagering themselves that we could follow up on if we wanted.
Tossing that idea out there so the operators can react to that.
Right.
That's what we're doing right here in public.
Right.
Any other things to add? We've added some broad categories to the questions. We'll get something on the books, put it on the next agenda setting to get a hard date. Commissioner Hill, anything to add? All right. Good direction there, Crystal, or some direction at least. I know you have to interface, you and Andrew, with all the operators.
I think at this point, once we have the date, that'll be the best next step. That's what they're looking for.
All right. Well, we appreciate the operators being good partners with us and being willing to educate us on a whole host of issues over the last couple of years. I will point out they were very, very helpful on standing up sports wagering, which we did in record pace, less than 8 months. We did so because we want to stamp out the illegal market. And so we appreciate them being just as willing to have this conversation now. With that, there's nothing else. We can move on to item number 8. And for that, we are going to turn to Commissioner O'Brien and Councilor Grossman.
So this is the follow-up in terms of housekeeping on the condition on the Wynn Mass license that was the independent monitor. We heard from the independent monitor that in their view, they had executed the contract that they were asked to do, that they felt that the operator had satisfied and improved to the point where they felt they could discharge any further monitoring. The actual contract with the monitor was signed September 5th of 19. And so the 5 years runs through September 5th. So it was a substantial condition to put on a license. And so there were two ways really to go forward, given the recommendation, albeit just a few months to terminate early, whether we wanted to mark it up for an adjudicatory hearing and specifically vote to terminate it early, or whether we want to publicly talk about the fact that we're satisfied or not with the condition and agree that the intent is, of course, to have it lapse on the 5th of this year and move forward. So that's why this is here. We had a conversation at agenda setting that the more expedient way to do it may be this way, that we talk about it and decide whether or not we want the adjudicatory hearing. I am satisfied if we talk about it today that they have fulfilled the obligations under that license condition. There were others within that, Todd. I think there were a handful of others relating to the then CEO and things like that, that it might be worth, confirmation that, there's continues to be a separation of powers, right, between the chair of the board and the president, CEO. They're continuing to maintain all of that. And to my knowledge, some of these do survive. They don't have the 5-year expiration date, and some of them do not. So that's why it's on for today. It's really sort of ministerial. Do we want to acknowledge the conclusion early and let it lapse, or did we want to actually vote and have it terminate early?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Commissioner O'Brien.
Well,
So just a quick question. So if we did nothing, September 15th, it comes to an end, right? Is that how I understand?
September 5th.
5th, which is a month away. Is there a cost to just allowing it to come to September 5th? Or, I mean,
Right.
I let me be clear, I'm satisfied.
Right.
I am, but there's no real issue. September 5th, it comes and it's done.
Right. My understanding, and Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the independent monitor has submitted the final invoice. I don't believe we're anticipating any further money coming that would be owed by the licensee. So it's not a question of the licensee having to pay more money, which route we take. It's more whether we wanted to officially discharge it earlier, given the recommendation that was given, or whether we're satisfied with simply letting it expire and acknowledging there is a disconnect, right? The decision got issued. There was a 30-day right to appeal. Procurement then had to happen. And so the 5 years doesn't run from the date of the signature. It actually runs from the date of the contract. And so just acknowledging that that was the 5-year date, I think is worthwhile.
I mean, if we were to vote on this, Mr. Chairman, and again through you to Commissioner O'Brien, it would be at a public meeting. We wouldn't need an adjudicatory hearing, correct?
Well, because it's a license condition, in theory, you would want to mark it up for an adjudicatory hearing.
Okay.
But Todd also pointed out, you could simply let it lapse, given the structure and the wording of the decision that we had.
I have no problem letting it lapse.
Clarifying question, please. It's either or, it's letting it lapse or affirmatively ending the monitorship during an adjudicatory hearing and not a public meeting where we just take a vote.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
We have a regulation that says if you're going to basically modify or attach conditions, you have to do it in an adjudicatory proceeding, and that's what this is really about. As a practical matter, we probably wouldn't be able to schedule and conduct an adjudicatory proceeding before this lapses.
September 5th. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there is something to be said about an affirmative statement that, and I know we've done that through the monitor's presentation and comments in response, commissioner comments in response, but there is something to be said about an affirmative act by this commission to relieve the company from the monitorship. And so I would be interested in doing that, just to acknowledge They're satisfactory and it's beyond satisfactory according to the monitor progress that they've made here after all these years. But to Todd's point, practically, we wouldn't be able to, I don't think, get an adjudicatory hearing on the books before September 5th. And so that leaves us with just allowing it to lapse. But just, I would be interested in giving a nod to the company for successfully completing its monitorship in a meaningful way, as we heard from the last monitor's presentation.
Another
option could be either setting up the adjudicatory to coincide with about that date, and or marking it up. And if we wanted to invite Wynn in particular to make any comment they wanted, and laud them for the completion of the condition. Those are two other options that I was thinking, because I agree with you, Commissioner. That's why I wanted it on today. It's a substantial condition, and it was pretty unusual when we did it 5 years ago. So I do think it's worth marking the conclusion, giving the nod to the licensee and marking the conclusion of it.
So with that said, could we not have a public hearing on the 5th?
Mm-hmm.
It lapses, and then we can make our comments at a public meeting and invite them in.
Well, but at that point, I'm not sure we would even need the public hearing, was what I think Commissioner O'Brien was getting at. At that point, we could do just a part of the meeting talking about the end of it wouldn't matter. I mean, at that point,
it's semantics, right? It seems silly, right? But as Todd pointed out, the reg says we want to change anything as adjudicatory. If it's lapsed, we're simply acknowledging it publicly in a way that would allow, both us and the licensee to make a comment if they so chose.
I like that.
I think that's the route I would like to go.
Right.
I did have the former chair in my head when you said that, Commissioner Skinner. We can always get something on the books if we have to.
Right.
But it sounds like this is an opportunity for us to let it lapse.
And it was
be the full term.
Right. And I wanted to acknowledge the monitor making the commentary. I mean, really, in scheduling that hearing when we did for the last report, was pointed in saying there is meaning to wrapping up early when companies are in this circumstance. And so it is a feather in the cap, so to speak, even if it is just a handful of months.
I agree. Anything else on this matter? I want to thank Commissioner O'Brien. She is, as I've said a few times, the sole commissioner left from the original condition, 5 years ago. And so we thank her for that work.
It was a work that was a lot of hard work by everybody involved. Todd also lived live the drafting of the decision. So I might be the only commissioner, but Todd was definitely here when it went to paper. Todd, I think the only thing that I would ask of legal is sort of pointing out the conditions that still exist, right? Some of them did survive. We had requests that, they keep the separation between, the corporate structure had a time specified on it, which I think was the term of the lease, 15 years. So maybe just when we're wrapping up on the 5th or about that date, you can just sort of go through what does in fact remain after that.
Yep, absolutely.
Great.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. With that, Todd, I think we're sticking with you. We have some regulations under item number 9.
We do indeed. I'm going to turn this one over to Justin, who's going to kick us off here.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. That's right. We do have a series of racing regulation changes that are back before you. These were all before you several months ago for initial discussion. They since went out for public comment. We only received minimal comments. They were actually positive and encouraging of the changes we're making. The first set of changes are to 205 CMR 3.12, which is restrict to racing judges. So this was presented before. It's in the packet starting at page 109. There's a memo on this. I want to thank Judy for putting this together when I was on vacation last week. This is a change that would make changes to 3.127, extending time for horses to show a qualifying mile from 30 to 45 days, which has long been a standard practice. We're just memorializing it via reg. The other change to 3.12 is to 3.1220, which was providing broader discretion to the racing judges with respect to range of penalties to match it with what we use as governing standard here in Massachusetts, which comes from the Association of Racing Commissioners International, RCI. That's referred to already and has been historically in our regulations. This is just making our regulations conform with that. So to allow our judges to actually utilize some of the higher range of penalties that ARCI recommends. So this has gone up to the State House. It sat there for the prescribed amount of time, and it's just a final vote to formalize the filing of this regulation.
Thank you, Councilor. Commissioner Skinner.
Chair, I have a motion if we are ready.
I think I'm ready.
Ready.
Dr. Lightbound, I do see your mic off. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I just wanted to thank the legal team for shepherding this through all the different procedures.
Perfect. Well, thank you to the legal team, and thank you, Dr. Lightbound, because you are our resident expert. So.
And with that, I move that the commission approve the amended small business impact statement in the draft of 205 CMR 3.12 as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today. And further, that staff be authorized to take the steps necessary to file the required documentation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth to finalize the regulation promulgation process.
Second.
Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes, 4-0.
Thank you. You're sticking with me for another two regulations. So 205 CMR 3.29 is the next regulation that's back before you. That starts on page 117 of the packet. This went through the same process, was actually discussed on the same day as the preceding regulation. This is a change to 205 CMR 329 to clarify the discretion of the racing stewards in crafting penalties for multiple medication violations. It gives them sort of some more discretion when there's multiple violations of different medications or the same medication. The details are set forth in the memorandum. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but this went on the same track as the preceding regulation and is here for a vote for final promulgation.
We're ready for a motion. There's no questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hill.
I move that the commission approve the amended small business impact statement in the draft of 205 CMR 3.29 as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today. And further, that the staff be authorized to take the steps necessary to file the required documentation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth to finalize the regulation promulgation process.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes, 4-0.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I have one final racing regulation for your consideration today. It's 205 CMR 6.24. Starts at page 138 of the packet. This is a regulation that was simply making the language uniform between the racing statute and the racing regulations with respect to the funding mechanism for ADW accounts. So that clarifies that language. This was on the same timeline as the preceding two regulations. It's now back before you for a final vote on promulgation.
So Justin, I did have some questions on this one, which was this is at odds with how the legislature allows bettors to fund other accounts.
Yes. So
I guess my question is, they drafted 23N when our reg said don't use credit cards, right?
So this is so you'd be looking at 128A section 9B. So the racing statute allows for the funding of ADW accounts using credit cards, right?
But our reg had said
you couldn't.
And so I was wondering what the practicality was on the ground, because the legislature made a point of saying you can't do this with sports betting, right? And that's the theory. You don't want to get in debt. You don't want to have too much credit. And the statute in horse racing, which is obviously drafted up long before that, does allow for it. But had people been doing the reg and not using credit cards, or had they been using credit cards?
That's a great question. I don't know if Alex has any. Alex, do you have any insight on that? Have we?
I'm not sure. It just came up that the two didn't agree with each other. And so, we moved to get it to agree with our reg to agree with the statute. And I'm not sure exactly when that statute was changed.
Right. So I guess in terms of, I get that it has to line up, but in terms of responsible gaming policy, I think our legislative team, kind of looking at Commissioner Hill and Edie Serpa, that this is something we might want to bring up with the legislature in terms of if the concern was to not allow credit cards and sports betting, they might want to just be reminded or alerted to the fact that there's an inconsistency in the old horse betting statute, right? Because now you have two online methods, one of which allows you to use it and one of which doesn't.
Writing down as we speak.
Me too.
Yeah, there's, obviously there are some differences. You do have to go into two separate programs.
Right.
And there's the 18-year-old versus 21.
Right.
But yeah, that's a good point, Commissioner O'Brien. It's a really good point.
Yeah. I mean, even the online lottery is 21 plus, right? So it's sort of this window of 18 that does allow credit cards. So it's, from an RG perspective, maybe something to talk about.
So align it today, but make it a part of a legislative conversation. And I will point out that we've been pretty consistent that if it's a piece of legislation that directly affects the commission, we're happy to get out there and educate everyone involved. So.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was was there some conversation early on as to why the commissioners originally drafted the legs to be in contrast to the statute. But I think we just march on where we are. We just bring it up and have the conversation now, because
I think it's a great policy question to discuss for the future, and it obviously is at odds with how we treat other aspects of what we regulate. So it's certainly worthy of further discussion and potentially even conversations with the ADW providers as to their position on this. So I mean, right. So yeah, we can absolutely mark that up and look into it. This was simply for statutory.
Yeah, I know, and I hate to throw a curveball at you, Justin, but
it's fine. No, it's fine. I recognize this too, Commissioner. So I saw it too. It's been one of those things that I've thought of in the past as well. So.
Yeah,
it's a good curveball.
Yeah.
So, commissioners, with that discussion, do we have a motion? Commissioner Skinner, if you're making a motion.
All right, let's try that again.
I'm not that good of a lip reader. I'm good, but not that good.
I move that the commission approve the amended small business impact statement in the draft of 205 CMR 6.24 as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today, and further that staff be authorized to take the steps necessary to file the required documentation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth to finalize the regulation promulgation process.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes 4-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
It looks like we're thank you, Dr. Lightbound. Thank you, Justin, as always. Looks like we're sticking with the legal team.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. So you're moving on to me now. So in your packet, beginning on page 145, you have draft amendments to 205 CMR 219.04. This reg is related to sports wagering temporary license renewals, and the changes here are intended to clarify the regulation to align with the Commission's initial intent. So just for a little background, when the Commission previously discussed this regulation, you decided to give the IEB 3 years to complete durable suitability for sports wagering licensees. And if it wasn't completed within those 3 years, the IEB would need to return to the Commission with a report. However, the regulation as currently written only gives the IEB 2 years. That's really just due to the word choice in 219.045 of sports wagering license rather than sports wagering license renewal. So the regulation right now would require an updated report upon application for the third temporary license, which would actually only be the second temporary license renewal. So just to sort of make that even more clear, the first temporary license was issued in February 2023. The second temporary license, which would also have been the first temporary license renewal, occurred in February of 2024. And the third temporary license, which would be the second temporary license renewal, will occur in February 2025. So we've just, again, made these slight amendments to the regulation to add the word renewal for clarification. And Caitlin and Kathleen are also here if you have any questions for IEB on that. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Colleagues, anything to ask on this? I do remember the conversation, and I remember it being 3 years very plainly. I don't remember looking at the reg and making sure that it matched the conversation. So it's always good to fix those things. Commissioner O'Brien?
No, I did the same. I know we were supposed to be together and I joked, how long did it take for the light bulbs to go off, right? To remember the conversation. It came back pretty fast, what we intended. And so this is the language that makes it consistent with that, then we need to do it.
I kept joking when I was being briefed that I could hear Loretta in my head. Director Lilios was in my head because I remember the conversation so well.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, do we have a motion?
I move that the commission approve the small business impact statement in the draft of 205 CMR 219.04 as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today. And further, that staff be authorized to take the steps necessary to file the required documentation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth to begin the regulation promulgation process.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner?
Aye.
And I vote yes, 4-0. Thank you to the legal team, Carrie and Justin and Todd, as well as the IEB for that. Now we're going to go to a fun one, right? Item number 10, and for that I know Commissioner O'Brien and Tom Mills. I think we're going to look at the final seal of approval design. I will take just 1 second liberty to say that this came up at the conference I went to in San Diego for the National Council on Problem Gambling, and they were very interested in what we're doing here. And there was actually some conversation on a national seal at some point, which I found very interesting. And I, whether it's one day far away that we add it to this or whether we all adopt the national seal, we're where we are right now, which is there's not a national seal. So with that, Commissioner O'Brien, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you teed it up perfectly, Chair. This is, as you said, coming back to you, the finalized version of the design for feedback, following feedback, excuse me. I believe it's on the very last page of your packet. So, first of all, thanks for that feedback. And also, he's not going to hear me because he's driving across the country, but thank you to Dave Souza for getting this into a really good place. So I will turn this back to you guys for your discussion, but happy to answer any questions from you.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you to Dave. We'll tell him to tune in and watch the recording. Commissioner O'Brien?
Just give him a mug, right, that has the insignia on it as a going away gift. Yeah, I mean, I like the tri-colored version. I think it attracts the eye a little bit more, probably easier for people to see when it's on the apps. If that's not true, fine with me to go with the two-toned, but I like it. I'm looking forward to doing it. I know Mills and I have had conversations about how we push this out, how we're going to be letting people know. And then also Commissioner Skinner and I had conversations with the AG's office in terms of their consumer protection group, making sure we dovetail with their press people and their comms people, right? In terms of having them let people know on the consumer protection side as well. If you're not seeing that seal, then you're not on a legal website in the Commonwealth. So just partnering with them once we Pickwish design we really like. But I think it's great. Thanks, Mills, and I'll thank Dave separately when I somehow reach out to him. I'm sorry I missed.
We'll get Dave for a couple more meetings before his final day, so you'll have a chance to see him over the computer.
Great.
We can send him outlines, Commissioner O'Brien.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll take the help.
Commissioner Skinner.
Yeah, I have a question for Mills. Is there something else we should be considering besides aesthetics when we're reviewing the two different options here, the black and white versus color?
Nothing comes to mind. I would probably want to have a quick conversation with Katrina and team, as I'm not the expert on how this will actually get to our operators. But I think it's color versus black and white. I think that is just that conversation.
Okay. I like the color version.
I think, if I can jump in for a second, Mills, if that's okay, some prior experience here. I think we're actually adopting this design in both of its uses here, the color and the non-color. Typically, the vendor will supply it in both ways so that you could see if you were using your simple black and white printer, that's how it would show. And if you were using a color printer, that's how it would show. So we're really adopting this design in all of its iterations.
But aren't we saying that we want the image on the operator's interface to be the colored version?
Absolutely. If they were doing it in color.
Yeah. So I think what Commissioner Skinner was saying, and I agree there, like the preference, I think she and I expressed a preference that the colored version be what is on the customer interface.
Correct.
And it would be. I think what I'm hearing Dean say, that if they printed it out and they only had black and white ink, it would only come out in that. But
this is going to be online. I mean, I envisioned it more. What is it that we want our online operators, to have to put on? And that's a colored interface, as far as I know.
I don't mean to make it
we all want the color.
Complicated.
Yeah.
In all visual representations where it's in color, you'd see the one on top. For sure.
Well, I wouldn't want someone to be. I don't want a website or an offshore book, right? Just to put it up black and white and lead people to believe that that's legitimate. Like, to me, either fabricating this or not having it and trying to see customers to the Commonwealth is just another step in terms of showing there's some bad faith and trying to come into the Commonwealth to get people to bet on the illegal markets.
Yeah. So, Edie Serpa, I think. So my brain's going back to the Game Sense logo conversation, color of the logo, where some operators wanted to manipulate the color, the green color, and so forth. So, I mean, the commission has a history of saying, use this one. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's places where it's going to come out black and white. There's everything in the world comes out black and white at some point if you don't have the correct ink or toner, I've learned. So I would the color, that's fine with me. Commissioner Hill, yeah, I think we're good with design 1. I think is what we're going to call it. I am interested in, as a secondary measure, and we can do this at agenda setting, what rollout looks like with the operators. Do we link to the website on there so people know it's legitimate? And a place where they're all listed, et cetera, right? That way, to Commissioner O'Brien's point, no one just copies and pastes the logo and, goes on an offshore book. So.
And I think you mentioned that was in fact what was going to happen, just what Chair Maynard said, right?
Yeah, as far as I understand it, Justin's been doing a little bit of work into this. And I'm sure that interfacing with our IT team and the sports wagering division as well, and just to put a another point on it. This will all, go back to our website, which has a list of all of the licensed operators in the Commonwealth. So if anybody has any confusion, massgaming.com, sports wagering licensees, you can see them right there.
Sounds good. So with that, do we have a motion?
I move that the commission approve the use of MGC seal of approval design 1, the colored version, as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes 4-0. That looks great. All right. Commissioners, are we good? Do we need 5 minutes? Do we need a lunch? Do we want to move forward?
I could use 15 minutes to get something for lunch.
Or just a shorter than a lunch, but longer than a break?
Right.
For me, I hope, I mean, other.
I
others-
agree. No, I agree. You're in Boston though. Do you feel like you need more than 15?
I can make it work. Commissioner Hill gave me good advice, which was to pack something. So, all right, we can do 15 minutes.
My mother would be proud of you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll call it 15 minutes. Let's try to get back around here by 1:40-ish. It goes into 1:42, 1:43. That's okay. All right. All right, Connor, I think we can take this down. Give everyone a second to get back. I will state that before we get started again, that I'm going to go a little bit out of order. Just because it looks like once we get into executive session, if we do so, we can close out the meeting there. All right, I think we have everyone. This is a reconvening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. Since we're holding this virtually, we will do a roll call. Good afternoon again, Commissioner O'Brien.
Good afternoon, I'm here.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Hill.
Good afternoon, I'm here.
And good afternoon, Commissioner Skinner.
Good afternoon.
So as I was stating, I'll say it again here since we started, I'm going to go a little bit out of order because we do anticipate some executive session work, and we will likely close out of that if we do move forward in that manner. So I will go ahead and move on to commissioner updates. Any commissioner updates, commissioners? I'm just going to do a brief one, if you'll just bear with me. I've referenced it a couple of times. I did go to the National Conference on Problem Gambling in San Diego last month and spoke on a panel that was entitled "A Regulator's Role in Keeping Sports Betting Fun." Jill Dorson hosted it, and I was joined by New Jersey and Ohio. Just want to take a brief moment to say that New Jersey and Ohio are fantastic regulators, and they were willing to share a lot of information there and continue to do so. And I know that our team is in constant contact with them. And specifically, I'm thinking about New Jersey's thresholds that they have. And they did discuss that, and it was very interesting to me. Besides that, I got to attend a couple other events. One was a 3-hour-long training that was extremely informative, and that was on LGBTQ plus issues and gambling disorders And so that was the research is just fantastic there. And I do believe Marlene talked about it earlier today, about the trainings that have went on with her team through us, right? And so that was very interesting. And then a panel that I know all my colleagues would have enjoyed too was the underground college student gambling behavior panel, which was just amazing. There have been studies on this, and it only confirmed a lot of what we've talked about, which is this is happening. This is happening at college campuses, and it's happening for folks who are under 21. So with all that said, I think that it was beneficial to the Commonwealth. Dr. Tim Fong was there. I got to meet with a lot of people that we need to follow up with, I think, and I appreciated the opportunity to go there and share the good work that we're doing too. So with that, that's my update. Are there any other updates?
Just in that same vein, talking about the conferences, while you were in San Diego, you got the draw for San Diego. I was in Pittsburgh. I'd never been. Beautiful city. I think Justin was down there as well. Had the opportunity to speak on a responsible gaming panel there that dealt with the online space. How do you take the brick and mortar practices and convert them into the online space? You know, as this often happens when you get in those environments, right? People talk about how Massachusetts is a leader in the space. There was conversation about New Jersey and Ohio and Massachusetts, particularly in what we were talking about. And I said this to Mark's team earlier, that the most questions that I got were the structure and the force behind our research. How do we do it? Who's the staffing? How do we implement it? And how does that convert into policy? So that to me was one of the most compelling. And then, you know, people who are vendors in this space, there are a number of vendors who, and I'm sure this happened to you, come up to you with sort of how can you help not only AI, but just how can tech step into the space in terms of compliance and responsible gaming. So a couple of interesting things I was just going to forward to Mark to see if it's anything, you know, worth him having a conversation with, you know, all of us on to pursue. But great experience. I've never been down. I know you have been there before. I know Brad, I believe, has been there as well, but I would definitely recommend it. It's a good cross section. GLI had a section on it earlier. I think, Mark, I don't know, I see you nodding. So I wish, you know, we'd been able to do both. Unfortunately, they were timed at the same time this year, but definitely, you know, had some good ideas coming out of there in terms of compliance and things that we can do looking at New Jersey, but then also just, I think we're at the forefront of a lot of this stuff and some of the things we talked about earlier today, like national BSE, that sort of thing.
And I felt bad for Marlene, who did make the trip to both.
Did she? That's a tough, and that's,
and
it was the day, I don't know about you, but the day I was coming back was the CrowdStrike debacle in the airports. And that was quite an experience.
Yep. It was the same day, it was the same day, Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was quite entertaining. And yes, Pittsburgh is the only major Appalachian city in the country. So I did spend a lot of time there because it's the biggest place, you know, around where I grew up. So
yeah,
so Cincinnati, I'll give Cincinnati a nod too.
There you go.
Right on the same river, right? Any other commissioner, and thank you, Commissioner O'Brien, for that, and your willingness to share some resources. I'll do the same to the team. And thanks for representing the Gaming Commission. They were luckier in Pittsburgh than San Diego was. I'll say that.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Any other business or commissioner updates? All right. With that, I'm going to kick it over back to item 11. Director Monahan.
Good afternoon. So today we would request an executive session to discuss security at the 3 casinos, Encore, MGM Springfield, and Plain Ridge Park Casino, and in particular, firearm safety at the casinos and safety at the garage at MGM.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read some language into the record, and my fellow commissioners can decide if we want to move in. I will go ahead and say that we have some executive session minutes. So right after I read that into the record, we'll go on to number 12 before we actually move into executive session. And I'll read that language and we can decide whether we want to move over in that vein too. All right, with that said, as to the security of the casino facilities, executive session. The commission anticipates that it will meet in executive session in accordance with General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A4, and Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, and General Law, Chapter 4, Section 726F, to discuss the use and deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect thereto at Encore Boston Harbor, MGM Springfield, and Plain Ridge Park Casino, specifically with regard to firearms and parking garage security, to discuss investigatory materials related to MGM parking garage security, necessarily compiled out of the public view by the IEB, the disclosure of which materials would probably so prejudice the possibility of effective law enforcement that such disclosure would not be in the public interest, and to review draft letters to Encore Boston Harbor, MGM Springfield, and Plain Ridge Park Casino related to the same subject matter outlined herein. The public session of the commission meeting will not reconvene at the conclusion of this executive session. That was a mouthful. Do we have a motion?
I move that the commission go into executive session on the matter and for the reasons just stated by the chair.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and I vote yes. And so if we may, and I'm making sure it's kosher with Todd, we'll move on to 12, item number 12, and discuss going into executive session for the minutes. The commission anticipates that it will meet in executive session to review minutes from previous executive sessions, as their discussion at an open meeting may frustrate the intended purpose for which the executive sessions were convened pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A4, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, and General Law, Chapter 4, Section 726F. And I'm going to read those dates. That's March 10th, 2023, November 20th, 2023, February 15th, 2024, and July 11th, 2024.
I move that we go into executive session to review the executive session minutes for the 4 dates just stated by the chair, and for the reason that discussing them in public would frustrate the intended purpose for the executive session for which those were convened.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes. Again, I'll add that the public session of the commission meeting will not reconvene at the conclusion of the executive session. I assume that we will be moved over.
Yep, we'll be moving you over. Just give us a second.
Perfect. To the public, everyone enjoy the rest of the Thursday.